OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, it's 7:30. It's Thursday morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. It's Ger and Eoin with you all the way through until 10. I'm a little bit croaky because I'm just a little bit tired because I was at the roadshow last night, Owen, in Vicar Street, and you forget how good our roadshows are because it's been so bloody long since we did a full one in Vicar Street. The venue is amazing. The guests were incredible. Apparently Michael Owen was talking about Love Island, kind of breaking some exclusives that are completely over my head. So they'll be coming your way soon, don't worry.
Wow. So there's your clip. There's your one to pay off the whole thing, basically. Michael Owen on Love Island.
Ian Wright is astonishingly interesting and an incredible performer. And he told a story about his stepdad and the Match of the Day theme tune and how his stepdad was just a bit of a prick, was actually the phrase. Which, in and of itself is going to be really worth watching. But, like, the journey that he's been on to get to where he's become, like, this totemic, iconic figure in English football. I don't know, is he... do they make enough of... Like, he should be a national hero. And maybe he is.
I kind of feel that there has been an Ian Wright renaissance. That we kind of forget how long ago he actually played. Like, I don't really remember Ian Wright playing at all. And it kind of feels as if he is in the sort of the modern pundit sphere, as in somebody who's only walked away from the game in the last 10, 12 years, when that's not the case at all. Like, he kind of feels almost kind of like newer to the punditry game than Roy Keane, even though Roy Keane obviously is a far more modern footballer, and one that I have much clearer memories of seeing him play. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I just don't know what it is. What's happened over the last 10 years, but it seems that everybody's kind of woken up to maybe what a great person he is, and that's possibly translated into what he's done, or maybe he's just become a better pundit, and that's given him better exposure, and as a result of that, maybe people think about him and talk about him a lot more. Like that Match of the Day story, like I wasn't there last night. I probably should have gone. I'm going to get serious FOMO this morning. They're giving me the eyes as if that was a pretty stupid decision.
Well, you could have got backstage and been like, but
I don't think I would have been able to handle that. It's like a good never meet your heroes and all that. Although
in this instance, you definitely should have.
Meet your hero.
This would not have been a letdown at all. He's got a storytelling capability, and a comic timing. Which it seems that a group of footballers, or a bunch of those footballers, came through and were able to do that.
Yeah.
Like similar comic timing to Keane. He was doing Roy Keane impressions at one point as well. Which he's allowed to do apparently because they're mates,
Yeah. He's allowed as anybody's allowed to do it, I suspect. But like his story is fascinating, and like I'm interested in hearing that part about his stepdad, because that, like, when his book came out a couple of years ago, that was definitely one of the most enduring images. The Saturday nights, the Match of the Day theme, and it not evoking positive memories whatsoever, like pretty grim memories, and just kind of like the sort of picture that painted of his own upbringing and how that kind of formed the footballer he would be, and also if I'm not mistaken, the sort of circuitous route that he would have taken to become a footballer. Like, he wasn't necessarily a wunderkind who everybody spoke about all the time. He went through Sunday League essentially, right? And then eventually makes it to the top, and he's just I think that for a certain vintage of Arsenal fan, he is the hero. Like, he is on a pedestal above Henry and above some of the players like the likes of Liam Brady who would have come before him. For a lot of Arsenal players, he is the player, and I do think, obviously, being Arsenal's record goal scorer for so long until Henry does come to the club, statistically he was absolutely outstanding, there's no question about it, but there's something else there. There's something different about Ian Wright. There's a bit of gold dust about him as a person, which I think probably endeared him to the fans even a little bit more.
Yeah, so that's going to come up. You're going to hear that on the radio tonight, and then the Michael Owen stuff will be played out over the next few days as well. Also there, Karen Carney and Emma Byrne in person, and they were absolutely sensational as well. Emma Byrne is a star, and you're going to see a lot more of her, I think, on our TV screens in the coming days and weeks and months and years. So yeah, sensational night, and you're going to hear that over but you do have to go. But that's I had stopped going to stuff. You've been at everything. You've been at like the opening of every envelope since.
I'm done, you see. Yeah,
you're finished now.
I'm finished. Yeah,
you're partied out.
Yeah, like there was tickets going for Gorillas last night, and I put my name into the hat here in work, and I was like, do I even want to go? Can I actually be bothered? if my name gets pulled out of the hat, I think Jojo actually won the tickets.
To
right?
Gorillas.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So
that was the other thing. Gorillas really ruined the amount of 40-something men who wanted to go to our roadshow last night. It was a very unfortunate clash. You could have put on, I'd say, maybe, I don't know if any other band / performer / artist in the world would have damaged our ticket sales more than, something from the early noughties.
Yeah. God, are we talking about people in their 40s being in touch with the early noughties? I think we're talking 30-something-year-olds here, Ger.
I mean, you can cling to that for another 18 months, Owen.
Yeah.
Go on, so you wouldn't have gone to Gorillas if you got a free ticket?
No, I
Are you
probably
joking
would.
me?
No, I would have gone. Of course I would. I've just seen them a few times at this point. I've already seen them this year. Oh yeah, no, I've seen so many envelopes being opened, but I guess that I can't remember what the last roadshow I went to, Off the Ball roadshow, but even just kind of working on them as a researcher back in the day, they are electric events. They're absolutely brilliant. And when you have even just one guest who can command a room like Vicar Street, or I just remember one time we needed Raj at Cork Opera House, one of the first ones he did with us. It was just extraordinary. He was absolutely phenomenal that night, and it's absolutely the best version of anything that we do. I think when you have like so many people in the house and sporting legends with everybody in that house in the palm of their hand.
He told a story about being at a live version of the Gruffalo when he was getting the phone call from Declan Kidney to say you haven't made the squad.
Yeah.
I think it might have been in the Cork Opera House as well.
Yeah.
I vague recollection of you wearing an old man's coat and having to sweep into a bucket. What was that?
I was actually having this by pure coincidence. We were having a conversation with a couple of my mates about that show last night, because a few of my mates, I obviously sorted them with free tickets, and one of them ended up getting incredibly drunk and had to leave, and they didn't get the whole show. So we were having that conversation yesterday. So this is the 2015 World Cup roadshow before the quarter final, which we obviously showed up to and lost. But we had Felipe Contepomi at that one at the 3 Arena, no less.
Oh, right. So that was the one where. What was the point of you dressing up?
I don't know. It
some
was,
kind
of
sweeper.
Yeah. So it was a kicking contest. So my job was to come in old style, like the old guys back in the day, with a bucket of sand, and then create a tee box off a bucket of sand, and then I don't know, Raj obviously kicked the ball between the posts. I basically did nothing. I had one job, and it was to make a sandcastle on stage.
But you look
so
good.
it was professional journalism.
Any idea where you got the coat? That it was a.
Yeah, it was someone in the building would have provided the call. I can't remember who, but it was yeah.
And as a matter of interest, why are you reminiscing over your off the ball career on? What's going on? What life event is happening that you've decided to
just getting old
to play the hits?
Getting old with age,
No. I'm not going to let you sneak out the door here. There's only one full week left.
There's only one full week left, is there? Yeah, I'm getting sacked. You're getting sacked in the morning.
People will take that literally.
Why are we doing this?
Well, because I wanted to out you so that we can have a celebration. Owen's leaving, everybody, because he won't say it. I'm going to say it.
Yeah, maybe I should have gone to the Off the Ball roadshow last night. I would have had second thought. That's why I'm not going. I'm trying to manufacture a necessary distance between me and my work now at this point.
Well, we've noticed that. We've definitely noticed a slightly edgier tone over the last week or two.
Yeah, well, my tone is always edgy. It's 7:38 in the morning. Trying to create that distance because I'm leaving this gig.
And are you not telling anybody what you're doing? It's like
I am going travelling for a while. I haven't been poached by anybody. I've never been poached by anybody.
Hang on. Stop issuing a come and get me plea here.
Yeah.
No, that's not what this is about.
I'm not leaving for pastures new. I'm literally leaving for pastures new. What's
the pampas grass?
Some personal news. Sorry, that's the other cliche.
Sorry, am I ruining you? You had like a carefully orchestrated plan for what this?
Yeah, comunicado oficial.
Going to be. As a matter of interest, would you have used Instagram or would you have used Twitter as your official profile or platform to announce your
TikTok? Yeah, I would have danced my way out of here. Yeah.
Boo! Is he getting sacked for not having a crappy quiz 3 Fridays in a row? Asks Mark Dunning.
Yeah, possibly. That would definitely be reason.
I mean, that would have happened a couple of years ago if that was the case. So, Mark.
Yeah, true. I think that'd be.
It's not the first 3 week dry stretch.
Constructive dismissal, I think, is what they call that one.
OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish.
Slowing the uptake there.
As you can tell, we're all a little bit heartbroken. Right. There's loads of other news over the none as big as Owen's. Obviously, that's the bombshell that we're leading this morning with. We're not burying the lead. Desi staying for another 2 years. I think we know the identity of the next Kerry football manager. That's kind of slipped in under the radar.
Yeah, Tomás O'Shea is named as the county's next under-20 football manager, so he's taking over from Declan O'Sullivan for next year, it looks like. I think it's not confirmed yet, but it looks like he's the front runner to get this job, and it just needs to be signed, sealed and delivered at this point. So the under-20s job, I think it had been spoken about quite a bit over the last 12 months, that like what is the succession plan in Kerry? Is Declan O'Sullivan going to be the next man up? And maybe, I'm not sure, maybe still is an interest in becoming involved into the senior panel at some stage, but it did feel that maybe there wasn't a lot of clarity with regards to who would be the next Kerry manager. Like going back for Jack last year, obviously it kind of felt, it's obviously worked out so well, but when that appointment happens, you're thinking to yourself, so what's next after that? Who's the next in line? Because I guess when you go back for a third time to a manager, one of the things you can criticise it with is, well, where's the fresh coaching ideas coming from? Again, it worked out very, very well. So where will the fresh ideas come from next time? And there's obviously a bunch of footballers from the mid-2000s who are very interested in this line of work. And Tomás O'Shea, just even listening to him and his punditry, will be one of the brightest minds you'd expect in it. So I think this is an excellent appointment for Kerry. Seeing him go up the road to Offaly was maybe something that, it wasn't something that was going to worry Kerry. It would have been and I'm sure the last year was like a great education for him working with John Mahon, but I think that the sense is always that there would be a job for him at some point in Kerry, and the 20s job is, I think that's a brilliant appointment. Brilliant for Tomás, brilliant for Kerry.
Yeah. How does it set a clock in some ways on what's next? Like, it's a 2-year term, I think. Backroom team TBC, some suggestion that perhaps Seamus Moynihan might be involved. It's a good opportunity to put together a dream team, backroom team now, and get to know each other and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. You can move on to somebody else.
Yeah, that's true actually. And like I'm sure that they'll kind of be looking at whatever team they set up. Can this team be transplanted into the senior setup at some point in the future? I'm not saying that the senior job is going to come up anytime soon, but can they actually bring that to the next level? So I think they know that they've got a very talented bunch of players to work with. They're not stupid. They'll know that they have an opportunity to win an All-Ireland. They possibly could have won an All-Ireland this year, and maybe they should have won the All-Ireland this year. They came up against an excellent Tyrone team, but on the day, Kerry didn't give as good an account of themselves as they possibly could have, and they got undone by two incredible performers in that Tyrone team in Canavan and McLean, who will go on to be senior stars. So Kerry held the candle to that Tyrone team is probably the most negative spin you could put on that Kerry performance that day. So that bunch of players is excellent, and a few of them are underage, I think, again, next year. So he has the players to go and win an All-Ireland, and as I've said so many times in this show, the 20s is such a good indicator for All-Ireland success at senior level, and Kerry have been missing that. Since Killian Young captained an under-21 team, can't even remember what year it was at this stage, they haven't won an All-Ireland since at that grade. So that's the next thing to be ticked off the list for them. Alright,
the other big news overnight obviously is Rashida Adeleke, and a stunning performance to run a new Irish record in the 400 metres. She'll be running in the 4x400 on Friday. That's tomorrow. Lost today there, told you, a little bit brain dead after being at the roadshow. And this is really interesting because she's taken the American college route, and it did sound like the American college route might be on the horizon for Israel Olatunde yesterday as well, when we were talking to his coach, that like at some point down the future he might do that. Which, you know, in fairness, like if you can get a high-powered American education, not that there's anything wrong with our education, it's probably just as good if not better, but the connections you'd make, the opportunities you'd get, the sponsorship, all that kind of stuff, and you can now earn money as a collegiate athlete in America in a way that you couldn't do in previous decades. So it's just because she has taken that route, having started here, and is at the end of a grueling season, and at one stage wasn't going to come to the European Championships, but she has come, and was disappointed herself. She said she tied up a little bit.
Yeah, you could see her reaction afterwards.
Yeah, and then I think like it dawns, okay, well, I've done a job here by setting a new target for myself next time.
Yeah, it was so good to watch. Like the 400 is probably my favourite race to watch. It's just the perfect length. It's like the perfect level of drama, and you're never quite sure until that final bend just how they're placed. And it's great as well just to kind of get that level of insight afterwards, just given her height and given how claustrophobic that inside lane can be, how difficult she was with her position at the start of the race. But yeah, that disappointment at the end was really interesting, because I guess we probably had more information than she did at that moment with regards to her time, that she had run an exceptional time. And I wasn't even 100% sure until the NR came up that it was a national record. It's incredible how back-to-back nights it's almost been a mirror image of each other, like top 6 finish, national record, and like just so much hope around a young athlete. Like on the collegiate thing, like we've had so many people in studio over the last few years who've kind of like talked down the collegiate system a little bit, where they say that everything that they have and everything that they need is in Ireland. So that comes down to two things: facilities, and more importantly, coaching. And everything you hear about, for example, like Daniel Kilgallen, who we had on the show yesterday, and the work he's done with Israel Alatunde and a lot of the young sprinters, is that he's an exceptional coach, and that the level of coaching here at the moment within the athletic system in Ireland is in a really good place. At the same time, and maybe it's at a very similar level, you look at some of the things that Rashid has been able to achieve since going over to the States, and I presume the facilities at University of Texas are absolutely extraordinary. But even things like the one of the coaches that she has, like in Edric Floreal, who's the head coach at University of Texas, would have represented Canada, I think, in the long and triple jump, and just that sort of international experience that you get from going international yourself is invaluable. And like, I'm not saying that the coaches are better around the world than they are in Ireland, but at that stage in your career, sampling different environments can only be a good thing, you'd suspect.
Yeah, it's really hard to know, because when you go to college, they run you in every race that they can possibly run you in, because you've got to get points and you're
an asset to them.
Exactly, and they're absolutely going to make sure that they milk that. Whereas, you can peak 3 or 4 times a year as an Irish athlete in the Irish system and focus specifically on these big tournaments, big championships. Like, some will work for some people, some will work for others. I remember listening to Sonia Sullivan talking about the desire to race, that racing made her better, and obviously in America you race all the time. And like Ronnie Delaney, which is obviously far less relevant now than it would have been 30 years ago, but 50, 60 years ago, he raced and raced and raced and raced and raced and raced and raced. Now, I'm not sure that gives you massive longevity on the other side, in terms of like the wear and tear in your body or the injuries, and your injuries don't get time to rest. But for some of these careers, that might be the right thing, and for some people who are more durable than others, it might be the right thing. For others, it might not be. Like,
yeah, like I guess it's interesting. Like, we would see Adeleke as, not after this week, but maybe we would have seen her as someone for the future, and Athletics Ireland would see her as someone for the future, and they're carefully crafting your career in order to peak for games down the line. Whereas University of Texas are seeing somebody here today going up against your big rivals at athletics meets. You got to win here and now. Now, of course, that means that as an athlete, you're absolutely in that competitive state day in, day out, and that's what all athletes want to be experiencing. And maybe you don't get that here in Ireland, but at the same time, if you possibly want to go and achieve your goals at Olympic Games every 4 years and make a few of them, then maybe not being in the collegiate system is better. So there is no right answer to it, and it all depends on the athlete. But it's hard to make a case that Adeleke has suffered from her trip to Texas so far.
No, and Greg London says, unbelievable performance from Rashida. 19, raced all season, only 6th ever 400 metres. Most her age are heading for the under 20 Europeans. It did feel like the 100 and 200, she wasn't going to quite make the level that you need to be at to be world class. And then it's like, actually, you know what, the 400, okay, let's go. And it's been like a brilliant strategic decision.
Yeah, like, and she's saying that she can get so much better at the 400, and like if it's her 6th race, obviously she can. Like, I'd be interested to hear what their thoughts are on the 100 and 200 at this point, actually, because obviously she has been exceptional in an Irish context at it, but they're obviously thinking that there's a possibility of being world class at 400 then.
Yeah, like you're up against the best Jamaican sprinters, the best US sprinters, and maybe that was the benefit of going to the US, is that you get that experience and you go, okay, I need to think about this, and where my particular skill set is going to bear most fruit, and it appears to be at the moment that it's in the 400. So it'd be great, because like the women's 400 and the men's 100, like, we're going to have week-long interest in whatever is happening at track for the next decade.
And as long as Ciara McGeehan can keep plugging away forever, then we're sorted for an entire meet.
Yeah. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock. Niamh Briggs is going to join us from Japan, where Ireland are on their first ever tour. The women are playing 2 tests against Japan on Saturday and the following week. Gregor Paul is going to join us at 8:10 to talk about Joe Schmidt and the impact that he's going to have on the All Blacks. We'll bring in the sports pages and news with John Duggan. Alan Dawson is a fight correspondent. He's going to talk to us about Usyk Joshua this weekend in Saudi Arabia. And Red on Red is a new book detailing the rivalry between Manchester United and Liverpool. A very appropriate time to start our build-up because the Liverpool Man United are playing next. That's next on our sporting agenda.
And the context couldn't be more perfect. Like, Crystal Palace did a big favour to the atmosphere around this game next Monday, I would have thought. And same with Fulham, obviously. That the Manchester United fans are going in to this game with just a perfect level of hope that if Liverpool do smash them, then it is shocking and awful again. Whereas maybe if Liverpool had smashed Fulham and Crystal Palace, then everybody's just expecting a complete rollover. Whereas if it happens, then it's still shocking.
There's some talk in the papers that the Glazers are open to selling a minority stake. I mean, there's definitely rumours doing around that the club is for sale, and maybe that's how you find out what price someone would pay for the whole thing. Oh, we'll sell you a minority stake, and somebody comes in and says, I'll buy the whole thing, and that's how that process works. Who knows? Again, with this stuff, they might be better at buying and selling companies than they are at buying and selling footballers. So we'll have to wait and see. One of the newspapers reports it as an exclusive, but everybody has it that Jim Ratcliffe is interested in buying Manchester United. He owns the company Ineos, the chemical firm, and he's a billionaire, and he was in for Chelsea, but it turns out he's a Man United fan, so the Chelsea thing was just because he wants some interest in a football club. He wants to have control of a football club, is how the spokesman said it.
He's a season ticket holder at Chelsea as well, I think. So
yeah, but he's a Man United fan.
He is a Man United fan.
So I mean, I suppose if you live in London, I don't know, does he live in London? Do they live?
So, yeah.
Do they live anywhere? Really, they're global citizens. Anyway, whether or not that is a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know what kind of owner he would be. Anybody but Glazers is kind of what the Man United fans must be thinking. But again, as we said yesterday, when the Elon Musk rumour / joke was doing the rounds, is that necessarily better? You got to be careful what you wish for, right? And so I don't know what's going to happen here, and I actually think that this is going to be one of those long-running transfer sagas that could run and might just be one of those stories that never has an end.
Possibly. We don't know for sure how serious Ratcliffe was about Chelsea. It seemed he was pretty serious and was very much in the mix until Todd Bowley stepped in. But quite often in these situations, that's a convenient interruption by somebody who actually did pop in to buy the club. So would Ratcliffe have actually followed through and bought Chelsea? Who knows? What I find interesting is that the first thing I think of when I hear of Jim Ratcliffe is environmental damage, and also of course Team Ineos in cycling, and the connection to Sir Dave Brailsford, who has been mentioned over the last 18 hours as well as somebody who could become involved in the takeover and be involved in the setup at Manchester United. And I'm not sure, is that something to be excited about? Is it something that Manchester United fans
suddenly
could
be getting good again, wouldn't
they? Yeah, exactly.
Man United fans don't care. All they see is he was successful. I don't care.
Yeah, it would be fascinating if Brailsford actually was involved in this and
make an omelette without breaking some eggs.
It's true, but if he was able to transfer his expertise into football, it would be genuinely astonishing. Now, there's a lot of marginal gains that Manchester United would need to make up in order to close the gap to the top four.
1,000 little mini gains, Owen.
Yeah, exactly.
They all add up into an extra 15 points a season, and there you go, we were champions. It's as easy as that. Look,
imagine
if PowerPoints.
Yeah,
he probably uses Prezi, but there's something swanky that he can use.
Imagine Dave Brailsford and his shtick. That would go down so well with the Manchester United fans if it was winning. If it's led to winning football. Oh, because all the buzzwords that are so easy to digest.
It's not just Man United fans, in fairness. All football fans would be like...
Yeah, sorry, 100%.
Right. Shifty lad. WTF, what up? This is obviously in response to Owen's breaking news this morning.
I forgot to say.
Conor Mullen says, best of luck, Owen. You will be sorely missed on OTB. That's nice.
That is a nice comment. Thanks, man.
Owen McManus, so is this the dying whimper of the crappy quiz? No. The quiz predates Owen.
It does.
It will survive and outlast Owen. The quiz is like a cockroach in the nuclear holocaust, scuttling out into broad daylight and getting stamped on by whatever new mutants survive.
Getting stamped on by John and Donegal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
John Claffey, will Owen get to do a Fergie and pick his replacement? He's definitely trying. He is trying to lead the witness.
And your job now is to get behind the new OTB AM co-host.
Owen is a huge loss, but hopefully he will be back, says Noel Cahill.
Yeah.
This is good. This is like being at your own funeral.
Yeah.
A bit less. There'd be more singing at your funeral, would there?
Possibly.
A bit more drunkenness, I'd say.
A bit more. Well, I mean, that remains to be seen what the level of drunkenness will be like this morning.
Best of luck, Owen. Sorry, JP Carey says sickened. Owen will be missed watching from Brisbane.
That's a strong word, but thank you.
Will you go to Brisbane? Is that on your list?
Possibly, actually. The list is endless.
Bernard Lawless says you'll be missed, Owen. Enjoy the travelling.
Thank you very much.
What if the travelling is just a bit of a pain in the hole?
I have thought about that.
Like, it's.
But I have said that, like, when my friends are asking me, like, you'll be gone now for a long time, and I was like, it could have just be a pain in the hole. I could also, like, lose all my money in a casino in the first 2 weeks and be home by Halloween.
Do you think it's a good idea to go to the casino in the first 2 weeks?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. If you can make a pile of all your winnings and risk it all in just one toss.
Yeah, just think about the positive outcome.
Be a man, my son. That one.
Think about the positive outcome, not the negative.
David Bosang David says, best wishes, on. You'll be missed. If they change Kerry to the team of the decade, will you come back?
Yes. I won't even go.
Well,
if Ger and Martin Brennan can get on a conference call with me right now and put them above Tyrone in the all-time team rankings,
I would do anything, but I won't do that. Paul McGee says, Owen did the job for the Kerry Mafia, leaving with the Kingdom being champs again. Job well done. And now he rides off into the sunset.
That's it, yeah.
You're supposed to, like, do your victory lap for the year, and then before next year's championship, when it looks a little bit, there's been upset in the camp. Clifford's injured.
Yeah, Clifford's injured. Wow, okay. Lucky tempting fate there. Yeah, no, the job is done at this point. I was inserted at a very bad time, actually. Like, literally the first All-Ireland since working here full time, so yeah.
Okay. Now you're being extracted. You're like,
I've been put in to do one job, and I did the job, and now it's done.
Okay.
And now I can go home.
So it's like The Americans, the TV series. You've been a sleeper spy, a sleeper agent this whole time.
And when I say I'm going travelling, I'm just doing the ring of Kerry.
7:57 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. A reminder, Braeburn Coffee is the official partner of OTB. Every week we're giving one lucky viewer a €100 voucher to spend on some Braeburn coffee goodness at an Apple Green store near you. To enter, check out @OffTheBall on Twitter. Just like and retweet our Braeburn competition post and you're in the draw. Braeburn Coffee is Apple Green's new premium coffee brand that offers customers the best coffee experience on the road. It's available now at 30 locations nationwide. Now, let's head to Japan. We were once big in Japan. Niamh Briggs, how are you?
Hi guys, how are you?
Very good, very good. We're excited to see what's coming your way for the next 10 days or so. What is Japan like for a touring team? What's it actually like to be out there at the moment?
Yeah, look, it's incredible. We've been here since last Friday. We arrived into a typhoon for Friday and Saturday in Tokyo. Got a bullet train down to Hamamatsu on Saturday, and it's been absolutely scorching since. Upwards 36, 37 degrees. So it's been tough for the girls to be training in, but they've been brilliant. The effort's been unreal. But from a tourist point of view, it's an amazing place. Definitely something that anybody who can should try and go. Owen, I know you're heading off for a year there. You should definitely try and put it into your bucket list. It's an unbelievable experience.
Owen, of course, was there for the World Cup, and
I remember. Yeah,
he would go around telling everybody he was a YouTuber, and that was like the best thing you could possibly be in Japan.
That was the best content I remember from that World Cup.
the content obviously was kind of despite the what was happening on the pitch. Like the Hamamatsu factor there is like PTSD, proper PTSD from an Irish rugby supporting standpoint. Like that's obviously where the team stayed, or certainly where the media stayed right before that disaster in Fukuroka, wasn't it, the game against Japan? So there's no PTSD on your front, I suspect.
No, there's not. We're heading there tomorrow for a captain's run and play there Saturday, obviously. And to be fair, somebody the other day said, oh God, this is where Ireland played Japan in the World Cup. But I hadn't really copped, to be honest. But look, it's just been an incredible experience for this group of players. You know, we've never been on a tour before like this, never been on a summer tour. So to get the opportunity to try and, I suppose, build more strength and depth. We've a lot of young girls on the squad that are, hoping to make an impression over the next few weeks. And it's just going to do us good stead, obviously, with the good news coming in relation to the high performance side of the game and rolling straight into the Six Nations. So I think it's just a really good time for women's rugby in Ireland. It's obviously been a while since we can say that, but I just genuinely believe it.
How many do you actually have on the tour at the moment? What's the number of players you have with you?
With 29 players. 29 players. Lots of them are incredibly young. It's scary to see. And 18, 19 years of age, good chunk of them just on their leaving cert, and they've come into this environment and they're thriving. And it's unbelievable to see. I think for us, very much kind of as a coaching ticket, we wanted to make it as developmental as possible, because obviously we're in, Japan are heading to the World Cup in September, October. We're not. So we need to have this opportunity to try and continue to build and grow strength and depth and kind of get over that hump of, I feel like for the last few years we've been saying we're building all the time. We need to start now finding players of international calibre that can play week in, week out for Ireland, and I think this group can for sure.
Is there an extra pep in the step, Niamh, from everybody involved when news of professional contracts get announced and that idea of there being light on the horizon? Can you just feel like a lift in the entire camp?
Oh, hugely. It was unbelievable. We were in Dublin camp for the week before we came out here, and it had just been announced about Gillian McDarby taking on the role of the high performance. I think everybody was really excited about that, and obviously the announcement of the contracts afterwards, and even just when we're here, full-time physio that's been appointed, it's really, really good, and full-time S&C now at Ed, and I think it's just starting to, the direction of the game and the programme is starting to change, and I think from that point of view, it's tangible, you can actually see it. So it's great, it's brilliant. I mean, you can see the players too, they're really buying into it. They're loving the fact that, they're going to be on par now with everybody else, hopefully. And I suppose the beauty of it is that it's a programme that's brand new and can be so, it can be so good for the game within the country, because it's something that you're literally starting from scratch. And I think that's just a really exciting project to be involved in.
With 43 centralised contracts, I don't know, does that include or not include the sevens? I'm not sure if that detail has been announced yet, but that means that there's loads of people who are still maybe not in the squad who can actually look a little bit enviously, but be working away and thinking, I want to make sure that I am next in line for that as well.
Yeah, hugely. And look, to be fair, there's going to be players in this squad that might not be able to be contracted in relation to their work situations and their living situations, and they'll still continue to play for Ireland, I imagine. I think it's just the case that we've got to start somewhere in terms of the foundation of what we're trying to build. And it's definitely, you're right, it's something that young girls now at 16, 17, 18 years of age can aspire to be. They can aspire to be contracted rugby players and get into that high performance environment. I think that's the most important thing. I think we've always trained and wanted to be aligned with the high performance side of the union, and we're here now, and it's about educating young players and girls of what high performance looks like. It's not just about training and recovery. It's about strength and conditioning. It's about the ability to be robust and to train day in, day out. That'll be something, that's not most girls, all of us wouldn't have been used to before in terms of the load and the management of it. So there's loads of little mini facets, but I just think it's a really, really exciting time for the game. And I just think that, it's starting to now put it on the map and take these players seriously. I think that's something they've been crying out for a very long time.
With the makeup of the squad that you have, when should we expect to see discernible style of play and an identity for the team again? Because it's hard in the Six Nations. There's been a tier of the professional teams and the non-professional teams, so I think people probably need to temper their expectations a little bit about what the outcomes are going to be in the immediate short term. But this is very much a long-term project with the makeup of the squad you've got. At the same time, you guys as coaches, you want to implement a game plan and look for patterns of play and look for partnerships and look for good behaviour. So within that context, what constitutes success for you guys over the period of the next 10 days, for example?
That's a really interesting question, because we haven't really spoken about. I don't think it's a case of, well, if we go and win 2 tests, then it's been really successful. I think the more exposure that we can give to players, the high level of training, the more exposure we can give them to actual physical game time, the more exposure they get to understand what it is to play international rugby, then we've definitely, come away with a win from these couple of weeks. I think they've put a huge amount of work in over the summer. Greg and John have been running a program for anybody who wasn't working. So like teachers and the college students, they've been literally training a few days a week in the HBC in Dublin. So I feel like we're moving forward all the time with this group. Even like obviously we've a lot of young girls, but also the older players that are there and have been there for the last few years. I just feel like that we've, in terms of the skill level, it's been a big work on for us. Our ability to catch, pass, the breakdown, those kind of core skills. They're got to be the foundation of what we're trying to build on. And the patterns and the style and the structures, they have to come afterwards. But you've got to make sure that you're fit and robust enough to be able to continue to train at a really high level. And I think that from a short to medium term, that's got to be the focus. Whilst trying to, I suppose, empower players to get better at rugby and understand the game more. But you've got to try and find a balance to it too, because you obviously don't want to go out and play no rugby. You've got to make sure that, your rugby quota is getting checked, but also, that strength and conditioning side of it as well. So, look, we haven't, I think for us as a group, we're just looking to continue to get better over the next 10 days. I think the level of training here has been unbelievable. I think it helps when the weather is really good, although the players are probably saying it's too hot, and the facilities are amazing that we're training at the moment. So, I just think for us as a group, it's seeing the actual culture, the environment to move to another gear, but also, that understanding of the game and their core skills. I think that's probably what we'll mark down as a win.
Yeah, it's kind of never ending, isn't it? Like it's quite daunting when you list out all the things that you need to get better at, but at the same time it's quite exciting in that you actually have the opportunity to work on everything.
Yeah, 100%. I don't find it daunting at all. I just think that this seems to be the start of a new era for this team and this squad, and there are players that aren't here with us through injury or otherwise, and they've still got to come back into the mix as well. So I feel like for now, I think that women's rugby in Ireland, although it's been through a turbulent few years, it's definitely on the up, and I think that the environment and the culture, this high performance appointment is going to be really good for the game.
Can you explain to people who maybe are unfamiliar, what will the difference of Gillian McDarby being there, what will her role be, and what will the difference of having somebody in that role as proficient as she is to actually run it? What difference will that make to women's rugby in Ireland?
Yeah, look, I just think it's probably aligning it more to just the female game. Gillian's incredibly good at her job. I've had the pleasure of working with her when I was a player, and she's always seems to be the type of person who seems to be brilliant at everything. And I've no doubt that she'll excel in this role. Her role will basically be, at the head of high performance and also the pathways. And I think that's the most important part of the role, in my opinion, because we need to make sure that we have foundations and pathways in place for young girls to have something tangible to come through to. And I think I've always said it wasn't a case about throwing money and contracts to players and having nothing underneath it, because it would be very short-lived then. It'd be like almost, that USA soccer, women's soccer leagues for years. They'd have a big burst of money and they'd have 2 or 3 years of a league, and then they'd have nothing for a few years afterwards. Players would be let go. And I think that pathways is so important. Both Gillian and Katie Fitzhenry in there are doing a really good job on that, and hopefully we'll see the fruits of that labour over the next few years. But, you hit the nail on the head a little while ago. We've got to be patient now. This can't be a quick fix. And, I feel like I'm sounding like a broken record, but it can't, because we need to make sure that the foundations that are there, the pathways that are in place for, under 18s, 20s, into that senior level, will be there forever, and will continue to, be almost like a conveyor belt for young girls and players to be able to push themselves forward for a national team. So, look, I'm really looking forward to seeing the impact that Gillian can have on this game. I think it's genuinely really exciting, and I'm just delighted to be involved in it.
What's that been like as a coach then, having to remind yourself that patience is required? Because I'm sure everybody who's new to the coaching game has their own ideas and their own things that they want to imprint on a team, especially if you're going to be working with the backs. Have you had to kind of think to yourself, listen, this is a building process myself, and it's going to take time before my own ideas on this team before I can actually put my own stamp on this team?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Part of you is very aware that you've got to be patient both with yourself and the players around you, but also it's an international team, and you've got to make sure that you've got standards and you've got to affect that change for those standards. So while they're young and I'm relatively new at coaching, we still got to keep pushing and striving to be better all the time. And so we do a lot of work off the pitch in terms of the back line. We do a lot of work in terms of trying to get understanding and timing and lines. And yeah, look, I think it's brilliant. But while I, to a considerable extent, I'm patient enough, I think it's important that we keep driving those standards and making sure that, you know, the time that we have on the pitch is very limited. You can't really waste reps doing, you know, not knowing your role and being sloppy. And like, so they're kind of the stuff that the girls have come up with themselves that are kind of their non-negotiables in terms of their behaviours. So from that point of view, it's kind of easy enough to be patient because you know that they're working really, really hard. And if it's a mistake, it's just a genuine mistake. And on the flip of that, they've got to be patient with me because I'm also learning on the job as well. So, but it's been great. Look, Greg, John and Dennis have been brilliant over the last few weeks. So it's just a really good journey, I suppose.
How good are this Japanese team?
Yeah, they're very good. They're similar to their men's style. They like to move the ball really, really quick. They're not absolutely massive. They're not huge, but they're incredibly proficient at all those core skills. Their breakdown work is exceptional. Their ability to catch passes is really, really good. And you know, they've coming off the back of 2 tests against South Africa. They played Fiji not so long ago in Australia in June. So they've had a huge amount of time together over the summer. And obviously they're heading to the World Cup. So look, we're under no illusion that, you know, it's a big task in front of us. But I think that we continue to kind of focus on ourselves and what we can do and try and expose these young girls to as much kind of game time and international experience as we can. And I'm not really sure that the result is going to, you know, be the main point of it for us afterwards. It might be to the outer public or the wider, you know, scale of things, but not for us really.
Well, look, we wish you the very best of luck with it. We're delighted to hear everything's going so well for you. Enjoy the rest of your time. Those games are live on TG Gar, by the way, if everybody wants to watch them on Saturday as well. Niamh, great to talk to you again. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Best of luck on.
Cheers, Niamh.
It's Niamh Briggs there. Oh, and you're going to have a week of this now. People telling you, saying nice things about you.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but
I know I did it on purpose.
I know.
I'm ruining it for you.
Yeah, one goodbye at the very end would have been nice.
A little Irish goodbye where you actually just...
That would be even better.
I'd say you've perfected the art of the Irish goodbye in your life, have you?
Yeah, and I think I've already started to do it. There's like definitely a few people that I've been like, oh sure, I'll see you before I go,
yeah,
and I know deep down I'm not gonna see you. I'm not texting you.
Why are you saying that publicly now on a live show this morning?
Because sometimes you just forget that you're on air.
We'll clip that bit.
Yeah.
you can just send them that.
Also, my friends don't like necessarily watch the show either, so it's like I can get away with, like, I can talk. This has been like great therapy for me. I can like chat shit about them behind their backs, and I just know they won't see it.
OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. After the break, we're live with Gregor Paul of the New Zealand Herald, reacting to the news that Ian Foster is staying on as the All Blacks boss, but with a beefed up role for Joe Schmidt. First, athletics journalist Cathal Dennehy was on with Richie McCormick last night talking about Ciara Mageean's chances this Friday in the 1500 metre final at the European Championships in Munich. Back after this.
You mentioned at the top of this piece as well, Ciara Mageean is looking in flying form, and you were very positive about her medal credentials going into that 1500 final. How genuine are those medal credentials, Cathal? This isn't just the green tinted glasses talking, I guess. This is actual, you know, you've done your research and you know your onions here. She's very capable of doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to. It's you know, when you're in the media stuff, you feel a bit unfair dumping unnecessary expectation, isn't that? Like, but I will say objectively, I would be shocked if Ciara Mageean doesn't win a 1500 metre medal on Friday. That's not to say it's going to be easy, and I think it's highly unlikely to be gold because Britain's Laura Muir, an Olympic medalist, a world medalist, Commonwealth champion, who beat Ciara, even coming in on tired legs, beat Ciara pretty convincingly at the Commonwealth Championships or the Commonwealth Games recently in Birmingham. But Ciara got closer than she's ever got to Laura Muir before at those championships, and Ciara is certainly in the form of her life. I mean, her season's best was 4:03 there in the heat, and she absolutely ran the heat like a champion, you know, like the boss woman of that heat. She was so impressive. I think Ciara Mageean is in shape to break the national record as it stands at the moment. She's capable of running well under 4 minutes for 1500. She hasn't needed to do it yet. She might in Friday's final. Laura Muir, if she's healthy, if she's relatively fresh at the end of a long season, should win gold. But Ciara and Poland's Sofia Inaui are basically two versions of a very similar athlete. They've often duked it out for the silver and bronze medals at European level before. And I strongly suspect it will be Sophia Inaui and Ciara Mageean again battling it out for that silver. And then on paper, at least, there does appear to be a gap back to the rest of the field. You have Bobachea from Romania and some other athletes, but on paper, the way Ciara Mageean is running, and she will know this herself, none of those other athletes should be able to beat her on Friday. So I strongly suspect it will be Muir out front and then Inaui and Mageean dusting it up for the silver.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The best rugby insight and analysis.
I don't think there's probably any positives to come out of just getting rid of Ian Foster. The players are still happy with Ian Foster.
OTB Sports Rugby.
They don't look like the All Blacks. They're not playing like the All Blacks. They're barely clinging on.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
If your business relies on a van, that wouldn't sound good, but this does. Get up to 75% off van insurance. Now available in FBD branches nationwide. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. 75% no claims discount based on 5 years claims free. Available on new van policies used for farm or business purposes. Terms and conditions apply. Underwritten by FBD Insurance plc. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, 16 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTB AM. I'm delighted to say Gregor Paul is back with us to talk about the developments in New Zealand rugby. Gregor, we were going to have you on earlier on in the week, but we were waiting to see what happened with Ian Foster, and now we know he is staying. Were you surprised?
Yep, wee bit. Like all signs, evidence, journalistic endeavour was leading us to believe that pre the Ellis Park Test match last weekend, that the decision had already been made, that he was going to be moved on, and they were going to make a change at head coach. And then unbelievably, they win at Ellis Park, and all of a sudden here we are, and they've changed their minds, and Ian Foster is the coach. Quite surprising. Didn't think that was going to happen.
How important or otherwise is the beefed up role for Joe Schmidt in giving the New Zealand board confidence, or is that Foster's decision? How did that all come about, and what does that feed into the decision making, and what does it say about the decision that was made?
Yeah, look, I think that's been a huge part of building confidence, because if we look at the evidence here, the All Blacks were sitting on 5 losses out of the last 6 Test matches prior to Ellis Park. They weren't playing particularly well. In fact, they were playing very poorly. They didn't look like they knew what they were doing. They were lacking cohesion. They didn't look like they were going to beat the last 2 tests against Ireland. We all know they didn't look like they were ever in those games. They went to play in Mbombela. Didn't look like they were ever going to win that game. Their attack game was terrible. So you're looking at that going, well, look, clearly everything's broken here. Nothing's working out. And all of a sudden they produce this incredible performance at Ellis Park that no one saw coming. And that's changed the whole dynamic. And I think there were a couple of really critical factors that have persuaded the board to stick with Ian Foster as head coach. One would be, after the game, a handful of senior players, and here I'm talking Sam Whitelock, Sam Kane, Ardy Savia, Aaron Smith, looked the chief exec down the barrel type thing and said, you can't fire this guy. We've got all the belief in the world. He's the right guy to have us as coach. And that was a really compelling story that they told, and they said, please keep him. And then when Ian Foster himself met with the board, he was able to tell them that he'd persuaded Joe, who has been, I think, a little bit reluctant to jump in with both feet and to get into a kind of hands-on training ground role that's going to require him to travel with the team. He was really resistant that he didn't want to do it. But since the All Blacks got back from South Africa, Fozzie was obviously able to tell him, look, mate, I really need you to be my attack coach. I need you to commit. I need you to jump on board and be with us on the training ground. And once he got Joe to do that, that was probably the critical factor that persuaded the board that the whole makeup of the coaching team changed at that point, because all of a sudden they had another, a guy that's been a head coach of a very good international team and who's been on the international circuit for a long time. And that was probably the critical factor that made them think, actually, let's just see how this plays out for a wee bit longer, because we've got a lot of faith in Joe. being able to add something pretty dynamic to the attack game at the moment.
Right, that's all very interesting. So it's not like the board kind of inflicted Schmidt as some kind of, okay, this is our succession plan. If you don't take him, you can't keep your job. It was actually Foster who wanted it. Because if we think back to the bout of COVID in advance of the first test against Ireland, Schmidt was more centrally involved in the coaching that week than he had been up to that point. Had he still been like in the tracksuit since then, or what kind of, was he in South Africa, for example?
No, look, he didn't travel.
Right,
he didn't travel. There's been a wee bit of confusion from the whole time about where Joe's going to end up. I mean, I think when we talked about this back pre-first test, we all thought Joe was going to be more involved than he was, and that's what we were all believing. He was heavily involved in the build-up to that first test at Eden Park, but and I think we all know this, that he had a real reluctance to jump into the tracksuit against Ireland. He just didn't want to go there. His loyalties were a wee bit split. He felt that was the wrong thing to do, and we could argue whether that's the right thing or the wrong thing for him to have thought, but he did. He didn't want to do that. And then he didn't. We all thought he would commit harder after Ireland left and that he would go with the team to South Africa, but no change was made. He stayed at home. His role was to select the team and to be an analyst. Felt a wee bit weird. He was doing it from afar. And then we all thought, well, that's going to be him. He's had a chat. He should have gone on the plane. If he was ever going to change, he would have got on the plane in South Africa. Didn't do it. So clearly, we're all a little bit not confused, but we don't actually really know a lot about what's happened here, other than he has now changed his mind, or he is now committed to being hands-on. And the process around how that happened, why it's happened, whether he's now thinking that he wants to, one day assume command of the All Blacks and be a head coach again, couldn't tell you the answer to that. Maybe. But all we know is that somehow, some way, Fozzie's been able to persuade him,
right,
I need you a bit more involved.
Like, that is really interesting, the players staring down the barrel with the chief executive of New Zealand Rugby. They're obviously seeing something inside the camp that Ian Foster is doing that isn't manifesting itself on the pitch, because the results have been bad. The players obviously think that those results are happening in spite of good coaching by Ian Foster.
Yeah, look, maybe. I'm a wee bit sceptical, because there's players have got a vested interest because he's the bloke picking them. So you got to be a wee bit careful about taking their testimony at face value at times. I think that, there's one or two of them, look, they probably smack me around for saying this, but there's one or two of them who I think are probably looking at the prospect of Scott Robertson coming in, the guy who's coaching the Crusaders, and a few of them will be thinking, jeepers, if he comes in, where does that leave me? I might not be in this team anymore. There could be an element of that. But I think the performance at Ellis Park would tell you that's probably not fair, because I don't think you can play like that. And they dug their way out of a giant hole there because they were ahead, and then they went behind with 10 minutes to go. Bowden Barrett was in the sin bin. With 14 men, they scored 2 tries at Ellis Park, which is unheard of, to kind of dig a game out from there. And I don't think you could do that if you didn't believe in the coach and you didn't believe in the people around you. So I think there probably was a genuine, passionate attempt to say, we're not broken. We do believe in this guy. We really want you to give him a bit more time, because we think with they've got a new forwards coach who's only just arrived as well. They made that change after Ireland were here, and they knew that Joe was probably coming in to be more hands-on, and they were probably saying, look, give it a bit more time, because we think we're on the right track.
Who was the attack coach responsible for the incredible performance at the weekend?
Good question. I mean, officially, Ian Foster was the attack coach. Okay. But I have a pretty strong suspicion that a lot of what we saw was Joe Schmidt from afar giving a look. Where he's smart, and you'll know this way better than I would, his ability to analyse the opposition, see what they're doing, and then create a game plan that is pretty strongly predictive on what they're going to encounter, and really cleverly built based on what he's already seen. Because where they were poor in Mbombela, they were really strong at Ellis Park. So they looked at what South Africa did, they broke it down, they analysed it, and they responded. And I've got a feeling that Joe played a pretty big hand in getting them to that point.
Is there a chance Joe Schmidt is actually going to be an even better coach that's not a head coach than he was a head coach. Given, like as you talked about there, his proficiency in opposition analysis, if he's allowed to go big on one area of the team as opposed to the overarching view that you need to have as a head coach, chances are you could have the best version of Joe Schmidt that we've seen on the international stage.
Look, I think you might be right. We've seen that a wee bit. We've got Wayne Smith here in New Zealand, who's a kind of similar, brilliant rugby brain, but not quite equipped or comfortable in that kind of head coaching role, the burden that comes with it, the responsibility, the media, the sponsorships that you've got to deal with. And I think Joe, I don't know, but I think Joe probably felt a wee bit overwhelmed with Ireland in the end, that the whole enormity of that role took too much of him away from the things that he's actually really, really good at, which is ask him to build an attack game. And I think he could be brilliant at that. And I think you're right. I think being in the background, not having to front the media, not dealing with the public pressure, not being frontline accountable, I think there'll be a pretty special coach coming in with a lot of good ideas.
In the end, Ireland became very predictable under Schmidt, and it just, like any relationship, it went stale after a period of time, and there was nothing to spice it up in the end. But at the start, at his time at Leinster, and then his start at the time with Ireland, he built systems of play that were irrepressible, and he gave the players a confidence in their own ability by focusing on the skills first off, but then also by focusing on these power plays. Like, he was literally one of the most creative minds in world rugby when it came to first phase ball and scoring off first phase ball, and Ireland were still using his stuff 5-7 years after he had brought them the first time. There's a try we scored, Leinster scored against Claremont, that Ireland scored again 5 or 7 years later from the same move that they pulled from the playbook. It's the type of thing, if you have the raw materials that New Zealand have, that is unbelievably powerful and has massive potential.
Yeah. Well, I remember the try that Ireland scored to beat the All Blacks in 2018, where they went back against a line-out, went back down the blind side from a line-out. And, that was all Joe. He'd seen something in the NPC here in New Zealand, a team do that, and he thought, I'll remember that. And look, that's the crazy thing about him. He's also bringing a kind of, the stories began to surface in Ireland, I believe, this year and last year about, wasn't the super happiest of camps under Joe, because he's not a warm, fuzzy personality when he's the head coach. And that's probably the bit that I'm more interested in. Yeah, he's creative, he's innovative, he sees first phase plays that are really clever. I get all that. But what he's actually going to really bring for New Zealand, I think, is quite a cold, analytical brain. He's going to put pressure on the guys at training. He's not going to be a soft, cuddly guy that they cozy up to and have a warm, fuzzy chat with. And they actually need that right now. They need a factor that's gone missing since Steve Hansen went away as head coach, who was a real kind of force of nature piling into them all the time. And I think that's where Joe's value will actually be, as well as all the other stuff, the creativity and the innovation. But bringing an edge to the environment and giving the players a sense of discomfort won't be a bad thing for the All Blacks at the moment.
That edge had reached its natural conclusion. You can only do that for so long with the Ireland camp. But again, I suppose at the start, is there a good cop already in the environment? Is Ian Foster that good cop, and he's going to come in and be the bad cop, and away we go? It's the perfect dynamic.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's the dynamic that they'll run. Look, Ian's actually a genuinely likeable guy. He doesn't seem to have that ability to really get under players' skin and niggle away at them the way that Hansen used to. And I think Joe can do that. You're right, it's got a shelf life, but we're a year out from the World Cup. And I think a year of getting that rock under the beach towel is what Joe will do. And I think that dynamic will work really well for the All Blacks at the moment. And they've missed it. I wouldn't say they've had a soft environment, but they haven't had anyone. They had guys out of their depth, John Plumtree, Brad Moore, the two that have been let go. They weren't able to put enough pressure on the system because they were floundering themselves. Joe won't be floundering. He'll be loving it. And he'll be pretty good at niggling a few players and making them feel uncomfortable, and Fozzie will build them back up again. So I like that dynamic.
It seems that in the space of a week, you would give New Zealand a markedly better chance at the World Cup next year.
Maybe. There's still a risk factor here. I mean, you've got to remember, they're looking at one win in 4 against Ireland, and 50% against South Africa, who they're kind of destined to play one of them, at least one of them, at the World Cup. So, yeah, you kind of go, they won at Ellis Park, so that surprised everyone. But there's also a wee bit of truth here as well. And it was the same, like, when they beat Ireland at Eden Park, Ireland made some unforced errors in that game. And they opened the door a wee bit for the All Blacks. You drop a few balls, you don't get your wide, you don't get your back row to the ball quick enough in the wide parts of the game. New Zealand turn over. And that game in part went away from Ireland in 15 minutes because New Zealand is still brilliant at taking mistakes of the opposition and capitalising and scoring. Where they struggle is when they have to build and create the pressure all for themselves and the opposition don't give them anything. They've been quite poor at finding a way into the game. South Africa did the same thing that Ireland did at Ellis Park. They let them into the game. They made unforced errors. They didn't play particularly well. And, New Zealand were able to capitalise quickly and settle. And when they get confident, when they get a wee bit of roll on the scoreboard, like they're still deadly. Don't ever, they're still a brilliant team when it comes to that pass and catch, turnover rugby, play against a broken defence. No one will catch them. But there is a truth there when you go to World Cup. How likely is it that Ireland or South Africa are going to give them that into the game? It might happen, but that's not a good enough proposition. So I'd be a wee bit wary yet until we've seen the All Blacks actually break down a really good, accurate defensive team. Then we'll start to believe that they could win the World Cup.
I guess irrespective of how well they play between now and then, if that happens to be against us, we will be having nightmares about Joe Schmidt being on the opposition dressed in black instead of green. It's like, it is definitely our worst case scenario where we reach another quarter final feeling good about ourselves, and then it's Joe Schmidt standing against us at the end of the game going, I'm really sorry about that, lads. I mean, I know how much this means to you. That is our worst nightmare, Gregor.
Look, I understand that, given your history. I get all that, but look, at the moment, Ireland would be massive favourites to beat the All Blacks at the moment. Right now, they'd be the massive favourites. Joe, look, he's got a reputation, he's got great ideas, but we need to see them implemented. And we need to see, and it's not just about Joe, look, there's a few issues that the All Blacks haven't dealt with. I think they've got one or two selection issues. They haven't brought through enough young players to put pressure on a few guys older who haven't delivered. So there's a whole ecosystem of things that need to change here before I'd be too worried about standing at a quarterfinal going, jeepers, they've done it to us again. But I certainly think with Joe on board, I would be a wee bit nervous about if I was Irish, about where the All Blacks could end up.
Oh, we are. And so Owen makes the point, a week is a long time in sport. Like this, famously, the front page editorial, has the mood completely changed as a result of this, or are people still very sceptical amongst the rugby public I'm talking about here?
Look, I think there will be an element of scepticism. There's an element of thinking that the New Zealand board were kind of committed to going down one path, and that was making change, and then they've been persuaded on one game. So there's a huge risk in doing that. I don't think everyone's suddenly turned around and gone, absolutely, Ian Foster's the right guy, but there was enough in that performance at Ellis Park, and bringing Joe in and giving him an elevated role has and the way that the players have defended their coach, they've all conspired to make everyone think, it was a 50-50 call at best about whether you should keep him or not. And look, the reaction from the public, there's many, probably the majority feel the board's made the wrong call. They've been persuaded or seduced by one result. And there's maybe a wee bit of a growing minority who are thinking, well, okay, they've shown enough to earn the right to a reprieve. They're clearly going to back these guys all the way through the World Cup, so we should just probably get on with supporting them a wee bit now.
When the front page editorial gets printed, do they go to the back of the paper? Do they go to the sports section and say, listen, Gregor, give us a hand with this? Is this the right thing to do? Or how does that dynamic work when the front page go all in on a sports story?
Well, how it worked was I was in South Africa and somebody texted it to me and I went, oh, jeepers, that's interesting. I had no idea that was happening and thought, well, that'll be a fun morning tomorrow when I bump into Fozzie. But, look, it probably captured the mood of the nation. And to be honest, I don't think it was gratuitous. I know there's been a bit of pushback. People saying the New Zealand media have been vicious. Categorically do not believe that's true. I think we've been analytical. I think when you lose 5 out of 6 test matches, 4 of which you don't remotely look like you're going to win, and you're the All Blacks, I think you've got to be realistic about the amount of pressure you're going to come under as a team. So, look, there was no issue for me about that editorial. I thought it was fair and probably indicative of how the public were feeling. But we're now in a place where they've retained him. And look, until we see some more evidence of this kind of evolution or even revolution of the All Blacks, I think we're right to be a wee bit sceptical about where they're going.
One last question. Scott Robertson in all this is an interested party watching on going, okay, all right, that's fine. I see what you've done there, lads. If I was the RFU, for example, I'd be like, we have an opening after the World Cup. We would really love you to come and just talk to us about it. You don't just come and see our facilities. That's all. Well, check the weather out. It's like,
Yeah, look, and I'd be surprised if they haven't already phoned him. Look, he's clearly a coach of incredible potential. His record at Super Rugby is unbelievable. 6 consecutive titles. No one's ever done anything remotely like that. He's a clever guy. He's creative. He's innovative. Like him and Ronan O'Gara would probably, if I was an international team right now, it doesn't matter who it would be. If you've got any aspiration, I would be getting on the phone to Razor and saying, what do you think, big guy? Do you fancy coming over here? We've got quite a lot of money to throw at you, and you can have whoever you want in your coaching team. You just go and get them. We'll support you all the way. And I think England might be quite tempted by what he could bring for them.
Would New Zealand feel like they've missed out if that was to happen?
Well, yeah, they will, because the danger here is that he's now basically been told through default that the New Zealand Rugby are going to back Foster and Schmidt all the way through to the World Cup. And then we don't know what happened after that. They'll probably do their usual, we'll have a process after the World Cup. But at which point, look, Razor, if he's going to go and work for another team, he'll probably be tapped up in the next wee while, won't he? Somebody will want him locked in before the World Cup kicks off, because that's how the real world works. So the reality is New Zealand will almost certainly lose him, and we'll get to the end of the World Cup, and who knows what will happen at that, but we'll have no ability to get hold of Scott Robertson, because he'll probably already have signed with England, Scotland, Ireland, whoever he's going to go with. He'll be gone. And then you'd be, jeepers, would have been quite nice if he'd stayed, but that's a luxury that's just not available to them at the moment.
Yeah, we tied Andy Farrell down for another couple of years, so I expect Andy Farrell to, good. But like, it's a high wire act. If Ireland were to fail calamitously at the World Cup, then Andy Farrell would have to carry the can for that, and the next 2 years would be recovery. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and fingers crossed from our perspective it doesn't. But you can see, if you were England, you would be getting the best coach in the world at the moment. They've said that they want an English guy, but like all of a sudden he's available in a way that he wasn't. And actually, I can see, if I'm Scott Robertson, what's happened with Joe Schmidt. You'd be like, well, he's decided he wants to be a coach now, and either way, whatever happens in the next year, the natural thing for the New Zealand Rugby Football Union to do is to go, well, maybe it's Joe's turn. Maybe he gets an opportunity now. So they've certainly muddied the waters. But Gregor, always great to have you with us. Thanks a million.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
It's Gregor Paul from the New Zealand Herald giving us some thoughts there this morning. Interesting times in the cut and thrust of... If you're England, you're getting Scott Robertson, right?
Yeah, you're sticking with Eddie Jones at the end of the World Cup.
No, sorry. Yeah, but he's announced he's leaving.
Yeah.
So you can just hire him now, happy in the knowledge that, like, we'll bring him in. You can sit around, you can help out, you can be a consultant. You can do what you want.
Eddie Jones would love that.
Well, I mean, Eddie Jones might be like, "What ideas do you have for me, Scott? What are you doing? How are you getting those backs to play that way?" Like,
possibly, yeah. Maybe he's become such a
because he knows he's on his way out.
Yeah, like the thing with Scott Robertson then is that he has a decision to make. It's a game of chicken in his own mind, because if he hangs on one more year, he would be the front runner to get a job that may come up in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But the thing with news is, like, what does Ian Foster have to do to keep his job beyond the World Cup? Do they have to win it? So, like, that's usually what the stakes are.
Or beating in a final,
a good return in a final. Maybe if they knock out some good teams on the way.
Actually, I think you have to win at New Zealand, right? You can't be beaten in a final.
So Scott Robertson wants to coach the All Blacks. That's not going to be any sort of mind-blowing opinion there. So he's basically thinking to himself, can Ian Foster win the World Cup? If the answer to that question is no, then you don't take the England job because you want the New Zealand job. Because that's the job that everybody in that part of the world wants to take. Now, England obviously would be very well paid. It's a hugely prestigious one.
There's competition now in a way that there wasn't for the job. You were the shoe-in. You were guaranteed
You think
this.
Schmidt could surge from within?
I definitely think that Joe Schmidt would be a great coach for New Zealand, great head coach for New Zealand, and give him a year's experience with those players and a year's experience of like knowing the system and knowing how to manage the board, how to manage up and get the resources that you need to do it. It's like, yeah. And New Zealand have given themselves an insurance policy here, but I don't know. I mean, I really hope that we knock them out at the quarter-final stage and they're like, oh, Scott, come on now.
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is that
Joe Schmidt is standing over.
Really sorry. He's like he's embracing Johnny Sexton with his big smile.
Yeah.
And Sexton's like,
and just Gregor's tweeting, oh, for the first time in his career as New Zealand attack coach, Joe Schmidt is doing press right afterwards. And like
8:40 this morning, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. A reminder, of course, Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of OTB. Every week we're giving one lucky viewer a €100 voucher to spend on some Braeburn coffee goodness at an Apple Green store near you. To enter, check out @OffTheBall on Twitter, like and retweet our Braeburn competition post and you'll be in the draw. Braeburn Coffee is Apple Green's new premium coffee brand that offers customers the best coffee experience on the road. It's available now at 30 locations nationwide. We're on extra long time. We're making Owen work just to make sure that we sweat the assets. 9:30 this morning, we're going to be joined live on the line by Rashida Adeleke following her fantastic display in the 400 metre final at the European Championships in Munich. So an extra extended show for you this morning. It is time for the sports pages.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not having that, no.
The Irish Examiner this morning has Rashida Adeleke as the main picture. On the version that we got yesterday, they actually had Brian Cody, not Israel Olatunde. So Adeleke makes the front page this morning. Their lead close run thing. Adeleke left with mixed emotions after heroic efforts. There's also Shane Walsh was doing press yesterday because he was the player of the month, and he's ruining the fact that the laundry had to be aired in public about his club switch, which definitely seems pretty bad. The Guardian had the story about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, billionaire Ratcliffe interested in buying United. That's on the back of the Guardian. The Times have an exclusive that Ratcliffe wants to buy United, and it's also on the front of the Telegraph. So Ratcliffe, let me buy United. They also have a picture of Emma Raducanu, who beat Serena in Serena's potentially second last ever game, and then was also did she murder who was it? Azarenka 6-love 6-2. So she's back in form just in time to win the US Open. There's a picture of Rashida Adeleke looking up to see what time she ran and where she finished. Desi to stay in charge of Dubs. We didn't talk about this.
Yeah, not a massive surprise. 2-year term for Desi Farrell, and I think I don't understand the negativity around this appointment, to be honest. I think that maybe there was like an immediate response at the time to think that his time had maybe run its course and maybe needed new ideas, but he's already got them over the line with one All-Ireland and wasn't overly fortunate this year with injuries. I think he absolutely deserves another year, so there'll be you make them almost joint favourites for the All-Ireland next year.
Yeah. French versus Shamrock Rovers is the big game tonight. Kickoffs at 5:30 in the Europa League playoff. It's a massive game for Shamrock Rovers, but it's put in some context by Stephen Bradley, who's been doing media, saying that he would have walked away from Shamrock Rovers in a heartbeat in the wake of his son Josh's leukemia diagnosis. This was the news earlier in the year that his 8-year-old son has had a diagnosis and needs treatment. I was so lucky to have the wife that I have and the family that allowed me to be here and to do this, he said. If she had said to me at the time, it's time to walk away, I would have done it in a heartbeat. My wife and Josh were like, this is what they want me to do. That makes it easier for me. So I think Stephen Bradley's got the support of the entire sports public, and everybody really wishes him the very best in that. And it does really put some context on all of our love of sport. It's massively important to us and we care about it so much, but there are other things in life as well. At 8:44 it is time for Virtual Insanity.
You have entered Power Drive.
Right, the hottest of hot streaks.
This is a spoofer-free zone, lads.
Stick your gloves on because John Duggan's on fire.
Yeah, we had a good week last week. Will Zalatoris headline tip 25-1, won the playoff at the FedEx St. Jude. The pressure's off, 11.4% profit, back in black, as ACDC said. Heavy metal stuff. So this was a very easy one for me to do this week without the pressure. So I took it as seriously as I would take any week, but we're going to Delaware, the home of Joe Biden, for the BMW Championship at Wilmington Country Club. Now, the hard thing about this week is we've never seen this course before on the PGA Tour, so there's a lot of guesswork involved. We're down to 70 now at the FedEx Cup. It'll be 30 by next week for the finale in Atlanta. But yeah, so there's a degree of guesswork. A par 71 course. Rory McIlroy saying it's very long. Patrick Cantlay saying it's very long. So you'll need big hitters, bombers on your side. So a lot of this is about gut, about feel, when I'm thinking of these. So I'm not putting as much on virtually as I would have last week. So there's a degree of conservatism come into my game.
It's actually harder with the smaller field. Is that right? Is that the?
I wouldn't. It's you haven't seen the course.
Right.
See, I've nothing to go on. So last week, Will Zalatoris finished 8th the previous year at Southwind. So we knew he liked the place. And he talked in his pre-tournament interviews about liking the course, whereas this is a degree of blind. This is a guesswork element to this one. Actually, he's still a fifth of the odds for 7 places, so the actual each-way terms are not that bad. Now, the odds are quite skinny to represent what you say about the shortened field, but it is an elite field. All the top players, apart from the live guys, are there. The headliner is Patrick Cantlay, who won this event last year at a different course, but he's 16-1 for 5 each way. These are bent grass greens is what this course is on this week, and he's the best putter on bent grass greens the last couple of years, Patrick Cantlay. His record this year, apart from the majors, which hasn't been that great, 10 top 10s and 18 starts. 16-1 to finish in the top 7, 5 each way. You know, he's so consistent. He's a very good lag putter, and these greens are really, really big, so I think that will actually suit him. And he was in a tie for second on his penultimate start. So he's the headline pick this week, the 4th ranked player in the world, Patrick Cantlay, a favourite of the slot. The second selection is Cameron Young at 28-1 for 4 each way, has been either second or tied second 5 times this year. So turning up in a new course has not hampered him in terms of his performances in his rookie season. Like at St Andrews, for example, was second at the Open. So that's a really positive sign for Cameron, who bombs it off the tee, which is what I think you need this week. He's also 13th in strokes gained and second in strokes off the tee, and had a 66 in the final round last week. So Cameron Young, I think, can contend, like Zalatoris, to win that first major title in his life, the first PGA Tour title. The third one is an 80-1 shot, Taylor Pendrith from Canada, for 3 each way. Once again, hits it a mile off the tee. So he's 11th in driving distance. He's 10th in greens and regulation. I don't think the green suited him last week. I think he'll have a lot of wedges in this week, and I think that'll definitely suit him. He topped 4 top 15s in a row after coming back from a rib injury, which kept him out of the game for 4 months before last week. So I think Taylor Pendrith, another rookie, is somebody that can possibly take advantage here, and a 16-1 for a place. And finally, Mito Pereira, who, remember, threw away that PGA Championship with the double bogey in the last hole of Southern Hills, another long course back in May. Obviously, that affected him a bit for a while. He's 100-1 for 3 each way. Once again, on the weekend, last weekend, both rounds were under par. He's 16th off the circuit in strokes gained tee to green. If the putter cooperates, and once again, like Southern Hills, these are bent grass greens this week, I think Mito Pereira, who won 3 times last year on the Corn Ferry Tour, is somebody that might be able to outrun his odds at 100-1. So Mito Pereira 100-1, Taylor Pendrith 80-1, Cameron Young 28-1, and the headline tip this week for Virtual Insanity, Patrick Cantlay at 16-1. So let's keep the fingers crossed we might have a bit more luck this week.
All right, JD, good stuff. And on the hottest of hot streaks, 1 for 1, which is exactly what we like to hear in Virtual Insanity. So a couple of your comments from earlier that we didn't get to. Shane C, what a loss. Irreplaceable is Eoin. Best of luck with it. Exciting time for you, but a sad time for us viewers.
That's very nice.
That's good. Michael John Harris says, wishing you all the best, Eoin. Started listening to the show last year and never miss a morning show. The pair of you have a brilliant dynamic. Class. I mean, we hate each other, really. This is all fake.
Just, it's fake smiles and platitudes and very funny joke there, sure.
Well, I'm sure there'll be many more opportunities to say.
Oh, what is that voice you were doing? Thanks, Eoin. That was my favourite bit. I'm going to miss
actually.
that.
I mean, there'll be many more opportunities to say thank
Hopefully
you.
not.
There probably won't. There probably won't. He's going to snip. He's going to like accidentally.
No, I'm
like
sick next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know, Eoin, you're a unique, brilliant broadcaster, and all I can say is, and you're a very funny man. You just need to go to the camera and just like do Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll be back.
Yeah, hopefully. As I say, John, nothing in life is certain. You know, as in, like, I could be back in 2 weeks with my tail between my legs, be like, listen.
Unfortunately, there's somebody in the seat that walks me. It's very difficult for us on. It's a difficult situation.
But email info@offtheball.com. Hey, this is my CV, my resume. You might know me.
The Kerry NFT is not getting you that far in Guatemala.
Yeah, true.
I mean, it might. You might go to Guatemala and decide that actually this is the type of economy I've been looking for my entire life. They're buying my shtick.
Yeah,
it's not Guatemala. Where is it? Where are they taking the crypto?
Are they taking crypto somewhere? Because
it's like the main currency, and they've decided that they've
Venezuela. Probably. I have a small investment in crypto, which was a very bad decision last year. One of my friends was very persuasive about it.
I have a handful of magic beans here, Owen. Would you like them? They will make your trip very high.
How many glasses of Roger Goodell did you drink by that stage?
It was a cold, rational decision. I'm still in though. The only way is up.
Brian Dillon
don't worry.
Says no. Sorry, Owen. Not allowed. I have a routine. I get up, I milk cows, I listen to Owen and Ger, and it sets me up for the day. So I'm sorry, but you are going nowhere.
Sounds pretty persuasive.
Brian, if you come down and just drive the tractor outside, we'll lock him in and we'll just make him broadcast perpetually forever. It'd be like an episode of Black Mirror where because he said he wanted to leave, he can never leave.
Sounds fun.
Good luck, Owen. Kerry are surely worried with no one to yell for them live on air, says Brian Heverin. Best of luck to you. You're going to be sorely missed. You'll be missed. Enjoy the travelling. Lucky boyo. Safe travels and enjoy. That's David McLean, Bernard Lawless and Conor Mullins. And Shawnee Riley is actually getting closer to the truth. Owen's clearly getting ran out of town by the Kerry Mafia for putting the Kingdom #1 in the power rankings. Best of luck with the travels.
Yeah, I think that is possibly it, actually. Yeah. That's it. You know, Kerry won the All Ireland. My job here is done.
What do you want to do for the final week of celebration of your time here? Because, you know, we won't get this time again. I want people to send us their highlights of like what bits of Owen's career do you want us to revisit over the next week. You can send them to us. Just use I don't know, what's the best way for us to actually collate those?
I don't think there are many highlights.
Colin's chatting to somebody there, so
maybe add Owen on Twitter or something like that. Or?
Don't add him. Right? It's El Salvador that.
El Salvador is a country with crypto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to El Salvador?
I probably will. Yeah. I mean, I'm so not prepared for this at all. I've been busy.
Going to festivals.
Exactly. Been a busy summer.
Saying goodbye to people that I'm not really saying goodbye to.
Exactly. Yeah. Just I'll see you next week. Next week is just going to be another normal hard day of work. We've broke the news now. We've said our goodbyes, and it's time to get back down.
The Japan stuff and the mail stuff, Owen. Get some of that out there.
Long time ago, John. It's their former glories.
There's been other glories.
Plenty more to come.
It's like Manchester United basking in the Fergie era.
Plenty more to come.
All right. 8:52 this morning. We have journalist Alan Dawson on the line, looking ahead to the Anthony Joshua Alexander-Usyk rematch this Saturday. First, though, here's more from Cathal Dennehy last night, alongside Richie, talking about the issue of funding in Irish athletics.
Fingers crossed now. You know, we saw Jack Chambers was here last night, the Minister for Sport, and there was a lot of kind of other people from Sport Ireland. They were all witnessing these performances from someone like Rashida Adeleke, someone like Israel Olatunde. But it's a drum we've been beating so long. You would like to now see them put their money where their mouth is, follow up those social media posts about how well Israel Olatunde did, and start funding Irish coaches, start funding Daniel Kilgallen, start funding the many others who are developing athletes exactly like Israel Olatunde, because there is so much talent out there in the country. And when you speak to coaches who work with, you know, the Israel Olatundes of yesteryears, the 12, the 14-year-olds, they're in there in schools, they see the talent, and then they see the talent either get lost to sport entirely or get lost to GAA, soccer, rugby, whatever it is, possibly the more attractive options, either financially or socially, whatever it is. But to really harness that talent and to develop that talent, you know, repeating the same thing ad nauseum, we really need to start funding coaches properly in Ireland, because there could be so many more Israel Olatundes.
That's the point that we want to get to, because I think for donkey's years, and this is going back generations of athletes, we've seen one or two pop through and be world superstars, when the feeling is that with the right kind of coaching and the right facilitating of that coaching, which ultimately comes down to finances, there could have been so many more Sonias, there could have been so many more Katrina McKiernans, there could have been so many more Tom Barrs, etc., on down the line. Like, you want to see multiples of Israel Olatunde, and you figure that they are out there. It's just managing to get the right environment for them to thrive in, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you first have to get the talent there, and then you have to develop it, and Israel was lucky enough that up in Dundalk, his PE teacher got him into the sport and then kept him in the sport. And then once he handed over, and I think he had the kind of lack of ego as well, Jerry McArdle, to hand Israel over at a certain point in his career and say, I am not a world-class coach, and I need to hand him over to someone who can take him to that kind of world-class, international class level, and that was Daniel Kilgallen. And that's brilliant. And Rashida Adeleke's coach, Johnny Fox at Tala AC, did exactly the same, was in charge of her at underage level, and then eventually said, right, she's at a level now, she needs a kind of a higher level coach who's kind of equipped to know how to coach a world-class sprinter. And in Ireland, that is Daniel Kilgallen. And there are others too, there's a handful of coaches there. I'm thinking of Shane McCormack and Jeremy Lyons, Noel Morrissey, who are in a volunteer capacity coaching a lot of sprinters to Olympic level, and they're doing a brilliant job of it. And you kind of look sometimes internationally and think the equivalent of them in Poland or Holland or Germany, they're in a full-time job, whereas our kind of coaches are working full-time jobs in offices, and then they're going to the track from 6 to 9 p.m. in the evening. They're doing that 6 days a week, basically for the love of the sport.
Yeah, brilliant stuff from Carl Denny speaking with Richie on the show last night, and more of that good stuff coming your way between 7 and 10 tonight, including a feature-length interview with Ian Wright, who was in sensational form at Vicar Street last night in our Cadbury FC Roadshow. We'll give you more details on that a little bit later on, but it's 8:55 and we do want to turn our attention to the fight this weekend in Saudi Arabia. Alan Dawson joins us now to talk to us a bit about this. Alan, before we get into the actual nuances of how the styles match up, the fights in Saudi Arabia, the biggest stories in world sport at the moment are the sports washing going on around Newcastle and the sports washing going on around Live Golf, and yet that hasn't really come up in the boxing, maybe because we've had fights here before. I don't know, what's your take on this as somebody with a ringside seat, literally and metaphorically, for this?
Yeah, I mean, The Guardian broke a story this week that a Saudi woman was slapped with a 34-year prison sentence just for tweeting, for following and retweeting dissidents and activists. The UK publication said it was a further example of how the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was targeting Twitter users in his campaign of repression. At my publication at Insider, just a couple of years back, one of our top reporters, Bill Bostock, uncovered an app in Saudi Arabia called Absha, which tracks the movements of women. And if one tried to move through a port, a text would be automatically sent to a male guardian saying if they had given permission for the woman to travel. And if there was no permission, the woman would be arrested, the report said. There remain public beheadings on Fridays, and these are just three of many glaring human rights issues in the modern day still going on in sports. Like you say, whether it's British soccer, Live Golf, or big heavyweight boxing matches, it just remains a convenient way for a nation like that to launder its image globally.
Has Anthony Joshua faced any sustained level of questioning about his willingness to help prop up this regime?
I think he has. I wouldn't say it's sustained, but he's definitely faced questions. And actually find it quite interesting because when he had the first fight there against Andy Ruiz, which was a rematch, I kind of felt, this was just my take, I kind of felt that Eddie Hearn, Matchroom chairman, was trying to act as a shield and take all of the criticism himself, rather than have questions asked of athletes on the card. I feel like this is the first time that questions are really being asked of the athletes. It seems to be mainly being said to Joshua rather than Usyk, and I think Joshua even was asked a question before the fight week. This goes back a few weeks, and he actually just unwittingly described what sports washing is. He said he's got no problems with Saudi, and they treat him well. Well, of course they're going to treat you well. You're the vehicle that they're kind of sports washing through. And so yeah, I feel like this is kind of it perhaps isn't as big a story as it has been with Live Golf, but there still seems to be some pockets of good journalism. The BBC did a good article earlier this week, for instance, where they did question the main parties involved in this event.
Eddie Hearn's argument earlier in the summer was that boxing isn't golf because in boxing you put your health on the line, and in a sport that you're putting your health on the line, I as a promoter need to be doing everything in my power to make as much money for you. How did that argument wash with people who are asking the tough questions?
Eddie Hearn's always got something to say. I remember in the Joshua Ruiz fight, he was kind of trying to point the finger back on the media that were attending the fight, saying, but you're here. And, it didn't really make any sense because, that those publications that were there weren't really being sponsored by Saudi Arabia. They were reporting on the fight. I feel like, that's probably a deflection, a tactic that Eddie Hearn's saying. I remember he was definitely getting more flack for the Ruiz fight than this Usyk rematch. And maybe it's just, the more they go back there, the less negative attention that will bring, just because it becomes a commonplace thing.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it, isn't it? Because like the Eddie Howe questions have largely stopped. There are still some questions for Eddie Howe, but nowhere near the level of intense scrutiny that he was under at the start when he took the job. We're just reporting on the latest transfer, tittle tattle to go at Newcastle. Like maybe when they get into the Champions League and maybe when they start winning Premier League, the questions come back. But by then, the horse has bolted and is doing a lap of honour.
To be honest, I don't particularly get too excited at all about fights in Saudi Arabia, because they're just, even aside from the sports washing element, there's just no combat sports culture there, and I just don't get the impression that they're trying to build or develop anything beyond just booking these random big events. There are regions in the Middle East that do have a burgeoning combat sports scene, one of which is Abu Dhabi. So leaders there actually instilled a jiu-jitsu program in schools, in school curriculums, and they hold international BJJ tournaments annually. They've got the UAE Warriors there, which is an MMA firm. They hold events in Abu Dhabi, and the UFC frequently goes there. So they, continue to develop various combat sports cultures there, whereas I just don't get the impression Saudi Arabia is doing anything similar to that. I feel like they're just trying to bring in, like Anthony Joshua would qualify as one of their big fights. I think they looked at Amir Khan. They had one of the Super 6 tournament finals there. But beyond that, it's just a one and done sort of thing.
This weekend, it's playing out in front of, I think, 8,000 capacity arena. Like, it's obviously no Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's no Wembley. Like, do we know exactly how much money Saudi Arabia are actually putting into this? Because it must be pretty substantial to forego 70,000, 80,000 paying customers.
But the rumoured purses that each athlete in the main event alone is supposedly $40 million, pretty much 40 million euro, 35 million pounds. So that's 70 to 80 million straight away. Eddie Hearn signed off quite a lot of power to Saudi Arabia for, they took ownership for the broadcasting, which is, I actually don't think this fight has got much buzz, if at all, over here in the US. And I think that's because they only really announced a broadcast partner in the last week with DAZN and also ppv.com. It seemed like Sky Sports were kind of slow to build up, their own promotion for it. What can you say there?
In the US, what time will the fight actually take place?
I think be about mid-afternoon. I think the ring walks will be 3:30 for me on the West Coast. I kind of had to think where I live then.
Yeah.
On the Pacific time.
I mean, it's interesting because, 3-4 years ago, before he was beaten, it looked like Anthony Joshua was going to become one of those very totemic international sports icons who can draw a crowd literally anywhere in the globe, and then all of a sudden that fell away. So to move on from the sports washing and to get to the boxing, the fight's very important from his perspective.
Yeah, I actually remember when he first came to America. I didn't live here by then, but I was reporting on how Sky, he was with Sky at the time rather than DAZN, and Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, they were really promoting him like a Roger Federer of boxing, like a Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, LeBron. They really wanted him. They were really marketing not just to be like the British or European face of the sport, like a worldwide celebrity. And then what happened in New York, it wasn't, like a 12-round loss. It was a complete humiliation, 4 knockdowns. It was a, savage beating. One of the best wins in the modern heavyweight era for Andy Ruiz on that side. And they've never come back to America since. there's been a bit of a rebuild, but again, then he lost the titles again to Alexander Usyk, and I was ringside for that fight. It was a magical atmosphere in North London because you guys know in Ireland as well, coming out of quite severe successive lockdowns, how much people wanted to get out again, and there was just a carnival party atmosphere in London at the time. The weather was good. There were pop-up food stalls all the way into the stadium, and the ring walks were really good. The card itself was quite poor, but I remember Callum Smith getting a good knockout on that card, but it was really all about the main event, and boy, did the main event deliver. It was amazing. Joshua wasn't really in it until the middle third of the fight. Usyk had the first third and the final third locked down, and he was more dominant in those thirds that he won than Joshua was, and I just see a repeat performance here. I really feel like Joshua did. He was built strong after winning gold in London in 2012 in the Olympics, but I feel like taking another fight in Saudi Arabia, a second one that should really be put in the UK. I feel like there might be a bit of a team that needs to kind of win over a lot of the fans that he did have prior. I still think he'd be able to sell out stadiums easily in the UK. But, going to Saudi Arabia once for a cash grab, okay, but to do it again and again and again, you're kind of alienating the base that you built in back home.
Does it also speak to an uncertainty in their camp that actually maybe he won't be able to fill those stadiums as much anymore, that actually he's not the draw because he's not as good as we were told he was? He hasn't delivered on the potential that was there, and actually what's happened is his late arrival in boxing and his lack of ring craft and all that kind of stuff that was supposed to have been to his benefit. He's not heavily fought, he won't have the damage that other fighters have had coming through the system. It's like, well, he's just not as an accomplished boxer because he hasn't done the rounds, he hasn't done the sparring.
I think he's definitely overachieved in the sport of boxing. He's a two-time world heavyweight champion, and I really credit, I've done a few of these podcasts and shows now, and you really have to credit his testicular fortitude in losing a fight and just seeking the immediate rematch. That's what champions do. But who he's fighting isn't just a champion, he's a level beyond that, and we're looking at an all-time great athlete and fighter in Usyk. But I'm quite convinced he's going to lose again, and it could even be by knockout this time. But I don't think it's going to do his ability to sell out a stadium much harm. I still think there's big fights out there for him. I really think a fight against Deontay Wilder would be a monster event, especially here in Vegas. There could be a trilogy bout with Andy Ruiz because they've got one win each, and they could have a deciding fight there. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was quite a bit of a controversy with a heavyweight called Ger Miller, who Anthony Joshua was supposed to fight instead of fighting Ruiz. But Ger Miller kept on popping for steroid after steroid after steroid. He'd basically taken a whole cocktail of performance-enhancing drugs. But these sort of controversies that can end up just, boxing kind of thrives on this negative headlines a lot of the time. And a fight against Ger Miller could, in New York as well, it could be Joshua's return to New York. That could be a big fight. That's 3 fights off the top of my head that I think, even if Joshua loses, there's still, the big fights, big events available to him. And it's kind of testament to how thriving the heavyweight division is, even in the absence of, potentially Tyson Fury claiming he's retired.
What about Usyk then? And I saw his manager during the week say, I've never seen anyone in 45-degree heat ride a bike for 100 kilometres. I've never seen anyone swim for 5 hours. I've never seen anyone hold their breath underwater for 4 minutes and 40 seconds, almost passing away and then shaking himself. I hope this will all help on Saturday. It's probably one of the nuggets that we've got this week that's actually been entertaining in the build-up. Usyk, at the age of 35 now, I guess if you're talking about somebody trying to make their earnings before they retire, he's possibly in that position, but I get the sense that you make him the favourite this weekend too.
Yeah, they said, like, how can we watch that first fight and think that Joshua in 9 or 10 months or, less than a year is really going to make the changes necessary? Granted, he's brought in Robert Garcia, who trains, quite aggressive fighters. And if they're going to go that aggressive route, really it's his only way he's going to be able to win. He's never going to win a decision against a far superior boxer in Usyk. The only way to really try and win is to seek a knockout. But by doing so, you just risk getting knocked out yourself, particularly as he could have been finished by Usyk in the first fight. What was the question? Sorry.
It was just more so that you're still making Usyk favoured, and at the age of 35, there's no signs of slowing down. But also, I mean, that quote from his manager, we don't get to see. It just hasn't felt like a very entertaining build-up, and I guess that quote kind of stuck out as something where there's actually been a slight glimmer of fun in the build-up to this, because we've got no trash talk really to speak of.
No, I mean, you rarely do with Anthony Joshua, and neither Usyk, but the difference between them, I think Usyk's got more personality. We definitely saw that in London, where he was dressing up as the Joker, and we've seen fashion choices kind of permeate through this fight week too. Usyk's quite a lot of fun, and it's good to see two, I would say heavyweights, but just two boxers kind of not need to descend to politically incorrect or trash talk just for the sake of it. The one thing that could you could say might pull Usyk away from the mission at hand is just what's going on in his homeland. Within days of Russia invading Ukraine on February the 24th, he was back in Ukraine patrolling the streets with a machine gun. I think he's had family that have evacuated, but from reports this week, it sounds like he hasn't really seen his children for at least 6 months. So he's barely seen them, and he's walking around Saudi Arabia with a donkey, cuddly toy that his daughter gave him, that we might even see certainly in the locker room on the night, potentially in the corner. So whether those things kind of play in your mind, but I just think I think we're reaching to think that can really have an effect on the fight. But it's a potential tangible nonetheless.
What happens for him if he wins next?
He could potentially lure. How can we really believe anything Tyson Fury says? But whether I feel like he said he's retired about 10 times in the last 2 years. A fight between Usyk and Tyson Fury. If anyone can challenge Tyson Fury, it is definitely Usyk. Particularly if he gets a second win in more convincing fashion than he did last year. Great fight. A fight against Wilder, great fight because it's two, contrasting styles. Wilder, just a concussive puncher who's 6 foot and 6'8", 6'9" against Usyk, who's 6'3" and just a masterful boxer. There's still great fights out there for Usyk, but the really interesting thing for him is that if he goes out and he beats Fury, goes out, beats Wilder, maybe Joe Joyce and some of the other big names, he only really needs to beat probably even those three, and he's cleaned out the division. He just cleaned out cruiserweight. He arguably one-upped the legacy that Evander Holyfield had at cruiserweight. If he goes and does similar in heavyweight, then we're going to begin to ask questions that, not only is this one of the best cruiserweight fighters of all time, but is this one of the, top 25 fighters in boxing history?
Yeah, it's right there for him really this weekend, isn't it? Alan, great to have you with us. Thanks a million for joining us. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on. Enjoy the rest of your morning.
Thanks a million, you too. It's very interesting stuff from Alan Dawson from Insider there. You can get him, of course, on Twitter. You can follow the at This Is Insider on Twitter, or he himself, of course, you can follow as well. Now I'm up for Usyk.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but you were up for Joshua beforehand.
No, I kind of wanted Joshua to come good so that we'd see him fight and there'd be like a massive fight. But that's like at Alan Dawson Sport is the correct Twitter handle. Sorry, I just want to see Tyson Fury fight again.
Yeah,
against somebody for all the belts.
There is no question that he is the biggest draw in boxing and the biggest one that boxing has had for quite some time. The career graph for Joshua though is still endlessly fascinating, and I think are we all kind of like waiting for one last resurgence? He probably needs Fury to be an active boxer to cement his legacy. I know most people wouldn't give him a chance against Tyson Fury, but he needs to take out a big fish, because I guess as if you wanted to write the negative version of the Anthony Joshua story, the conclusion might be on that Klitschko fight. What version of Klitschko did he actually get? And unfortunately, that is what the angle will be on what was one of the greatest heavyweight bouts of the era.
See, because the fight was so good, it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you know, like there's a bit there where you're like, well,
the one thing about it is that, like, a kind of there was also this notion about Joshua, maybe, like how much I don't know, the way he managed to just get back up from, he was staring defeat in the face that night against Klitschko, managed to come back and went from there. So it was a great fight, but it was also the fact that he was dead, and he managed to come back from that. And it was like the balls, as Alan said, the testicular fortitude of some of the things we've seen from Anthony Joshua actually can't be questioned, even though it sometimes feels like there are those questions around him. And I think that probably stems from just a frustration that he hasn't gone on to become the definitive boxer of his generation.
Yeah, that's definitely there. But if he was to beat Usyk this weekend and do it in a convincing fashion, then, you know, everything's back again, I suppose. So a lot riding on that fight this weekend, but you know, it is also a signifier of just how filthy the sport of boxing is and how sport is becoming filthy and just a pawn for these countries. 9:15 this morning, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio for you today. OTB Gold is our interview with Lance Armstrong. Leaders' questions at 3 o'clock with Stuart Lancaster. Our retro panel is League of Ireland players in England, and OTB Gold is 6. At 6 is Barry Ryan's book The Ascent, which is about Irish cycling. Richie McCormick is live from 7 tonight. The brilliant Ian Wright portion of last night's Cadbury FC Roadshow at Vicar Street will be played for the first time. And as always, on a Thursday, John Giles will be on hand with his football thoughts, no doubt sharing his views on the latest situation at Manchester United. It's the first time we've had him on, of course, since the annihilation last weekend. Follow us across our social channels, subscribe to our YouTube, and make sure you download the OTB Sports app for the latest and best sports content and analysis. After the break, we're live with Jim White and Phil McNulty, authors of Red on Red, a new book chronicling the fiercest rivalry in world football, Manchester United versus Liverpool. Back after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast?
Our fan base, Liverpool fan base, is among the biggest bunch of bedwetters. And there's always hysteria. Well, you know what, it's early days.
Jadon Sancho is a bust. He is now trying to come back from being a bust.
I don't think he's a bust at all.
100%
I don't think so.
He's a complete waste of money so far.
No.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts, and download the OTB Sports app.
If your business relies on a van, that wouldn't sound good. But this does. Get up to 75% off van insurance. Now available in FBD branches nationwide. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. 75% no claims discount based on 5 years claims free. Available on new van policies used for farm or business purposes. Terms and conditions apply. Underwritten by FBD Insurance plc. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
It is 17 minutes past 9 this morning. I'm delighted to say we're joined by authors Jim White and Phil McNulty. Their new book, Red on Red, is out, and it chronicles the most recent portion, the last 50 years or so, of the fiercest rivalry in world football, Manchester United against Liverpool. Gentlemen, you're both very welcome. It's a good week to have you on, considering what's coming our way on Monday night. Jim, I might start with you. It's very difficult to get a rivalry like this down on paper, but you guys have managed it by taking specific incidents over the years and building up this collective picture of why it matters so much. How difficult was it for you to pick which of the incidents and the games and the moments to actually make sure that you captured it properly?
It's interesting. The rivalry is one that in a way has not been around forever. It's strange. I mean, we talk about Manchester and Liverpool and people talk about the ship canal and all these kind of historical incidents. But actually, back in the 60s, Manchester United and Liverpool respected each other very highly. They had two managers who were great friends in Bill Shankly and Matt Busby. And we discovered during our research that it really started to boil up in the 70s. And so we were looking at points in it. One of the most fascinating things is these are the two most decorated clubs in English football. They've won more than anyone else. I'm sorry, Manchester City, they just have. They've won a lot more than anybody else. And the interesting thing is they've very, very rarely been in opposition at the same time. very rarely had grand set-piece occasions. They've met in 2 FA Cup finals, 2 League Cup finals, and they met once in Europe. So we were looking at the points where there were these big, grand coming-togethers, and what made them really difficult, tense, interesting occasions is because they were so rare. And so we start in 1977, the 1977 FA Cup final, when United pricked the balloon of the Liverpool treble. And United fans have been living off it ever since, and Liverpool fans have been bitter about it ever since.
And so the great intensity of the rivalry was born. Phil, I don't know, is it an unfair question to ask, are either of you two supporters of either of these two clubs? Is that something that you will keep with you as a closely guarded secret all the way to your graves?
As I work for the BBC, I have to be strictly neutral. All I can say is I was born in Liverpool. I am very well versed in the rivalry, having experienced it at close quarters and also reporting for the Liverpool Daily Post and the Liverpool Echo before I moved to the BBC. Jim is less impartial, and he will happily tell you who he supports.
Go on, Jim.
Yeah, I'm Manchester United fan of very long time. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, though. You could probably get a guess by the by the visuals on this. But no, I've been supporting them for I've been going to games for over 50 years.
One of the great kind of pieces that Manchester United fans like to throw into the mix, and I see you've done it in the book as well, Jim, is, you know, the origins of You'll Never Walk Alone. Like, is it really a Liverpool song at all? As a Manchester United fan, I know you brought that argument to the table.
I did indeed. 1959. I think it was the New Mills Operatic Society were rehearsing Carousel, which includes You'll Never Walk Alone. Just after the Munich air crash, they went to Old Trafford and they started singing it in the Stretford End, and everyone picked up on it. That's the story. I wasn't there.
Could you see me smiling there? Because I'm convinced that's a version of Would I Lie to You, with Jim trying to convince people that that's actually true.
I presume it's just nonsense by Liverpool fans, is it, Phil?
Well, Liverpool fans claim. Liverpool fans claim.
Jim, if we can get him off this subject just for a second, he's now convinced himself that this story is true, and obviously he is now on the hunt to find a Liverpool fan who will actually believe him. That's the problem.
How did you?
But it's very convincing. He sort of almost convinced me it's true.
How did you guys find an editor to make sure that some form of your own individual truths wasn't the only truth recorded in this book, lads? It seems like I can imagine your meetings were pretty intense sometimes.
They were very, very cordial. We've been friends for a long time. We're neighbours in Oxford, so we're more than the book. We're friends. And funnily enough, I think in all the course of doing it, for all the sort of questions that we might have posed to each other about, you know, stories, anecdotes, you know, facts, stuff like that, I don't think we had a single crossword in all the time we were doing it. It was a really enjoyable project. And what we found particularly was the number of people who, once we mentioned it to them, couldn't wait to speak to us about it. We've spoken to over 50 people, I think, in the course of our research. And, you know, we spoke to people from way back, like Ron Atkinson and Martin Buck and Lou Macari, and the more modern, if you like, protagonists like Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville. And Gary Neville responded instantly to our request to do it. And he gave us 45 minutes on Zoom from his office in Manchester because he had a meeting with the PFA. And at 10:15 or whatever that time was, he said, look, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go because, you know, my time is up. He said, but I've got so much more to say on this subject. Can I book another 45 minutes with you? And we found lots of people like that. It's a rivalry of such intensity and emotion that people who were involved in it couldn't wait to talk to us about it. It was very good for us, obviously, to get all these people who were so willing to sort of dig back in the memory bank, give their thoughts on all the various aspects we explored, like the musicians and politicians and even people who were involved in fashion and culture. It was a subject that, you know, once we got going, we realised we were onto something because so many people who were involved in it were really keen to revive their memories and give their reflections on what the rivalry meant to them and to the supporters.
Yeah, Jimmy, you make the really interesting point that the two teams haven't been both dynastic at the same time, that there's kind of been a cycle where one is completely dominant over the other, and obviously that seems to have switched back just right now at the moment. And yet at the same time, the intensity of the fixture every season has been only heightened by the fact that there's probably been a significant difference between who were the most successful team. Like, I know they both have local rivals. I know that the Merseyside derby and the Manchester derby are massive fixtures, but they're not as big as Liverpool Man United, which is kind of weird in world football in some respects. Why do they hate each other so much? What is the enduring hatred between the teams?
It's a really fascinating one, this. I think this is... Phil said that there was no point of argument, but I think there is a slight argument here between the two of us. In that, what I find fascinating is that in Manchester, people of every class, every walk of life, you know, a High Court judge or a bus driver, the last area in which they can be publicly disparaging about another group of people is about Scousers. So they will say immediately, oh, you can't trust a Scouser. You'll have your hubcaps nicked if you park your car over there. They're all thieving, etc. And it's like, this is the last place they're allowed to be rude about publicly. And that's driven by the football, because actually these two towns are incredibly similar in their working class backgrounds, in the fact they've got a lot of Irish immigration. They're very, very similar. And yet there's this kind of lingering disparagement. Now, Phil claims that it's all sweetness and light in Liverpool, and actually they're really nice towards Mancunians, and he's never sneered about a Manc in his life. But the other direction, definitely. And the odd thing is, people talk about other rivalries, Rangers-Celtic, for instance. That's driven by religion. Barcelona, Real Madrid, that's driven by politics. This is driven by neither. This is driven by football. Football sets the agenda between these two cities, and yet it spreads wider into a wider loathing, or, you know, I suppose loathing may be too wide. Well, no, when the football comes in, it is loathing.
Like, and that's kind of one of the key points of the book, and also it's like really interesting to just kind of read both of your perspectives on, you know, the attitude of Mancunians towards people from Liverpool. I guess kind of like the sneery nature that maybe Liverpool people would say anyway, that maybe Mancunians would have had towards them down through the years. And what I'm interested in then is when we kind of transport that to modern football, Phil, how the modern fan who may live nowhere near the north of England actually manages to put their whole sense of loyalty into that rivalry despite having little to no idea of what it's actually like on the ground, because it seems that what's happening on the ground is the most important ingredient to this rivalry.
Yeah, as Jim said, it's driven by the football, and I think one of the things we when we were looking at the more modern aspects of it, obviously one of the things you think about now is the rivalry between Liverpool and Manchester City. Now that is very much an on-the-field rivalry, but it doesn't spread out in the same way that the Manchester United-Liverpool rivalry does. There's no real sense of history outside what happens on the football field. We spoke to lots of people, Manchester United and Liverpool fans, and they were saying that, yeah, while Manchester City and Liverpool have had these titanic title battles that have gone down to the last day of the season, the rivalry is just simply not on the same scale as Liverpool and Manchester United. That's still the big rivalry. And as a guy we spoke to, Robbie O'Neill, an actor from Liverpool, said, if Liverpool and Manchester United had some of the title battles that Liverpool and Manchester City have had in the last few seasons, where it's gone down to the last day of the season, where even 20 minutes from the end of this season, you're thinking Liverpool are going to win the title and Manchester City won it. He said they'd make films about it. He said it would be a documentary series. It still doesn't quite capture the emotions the way the Liverpool-Manchester United rivalry does. As lots of people said to us, and they all seem to use the same phrase, you can't invent a rivalry. And at this moment in time, maybe the younger generation will pick up on it. Liverpool-Manchester United is a huge rivalry. Liverpool-Manchester City and Manchester City-Liverpool is an on-the-pitch rivalry, which doesn't extend too far beyond that. Liverpool-Manchester United rivalry is so much more, and I think will continue to be so much more for a very long time still, even though Manchester United are now very much in reduced circumstances compared to Liverpool and Manchester City.
I think the international element of it is really interesting. I mean, it's big in Ireland, I know that. I mean, I once went to Addis Ababa, and they had these grandstands set up in a square in the middle of the city with a big screen. And I said, what's that for? And they said, oh, it's Liverpool Man United at the weekend. and they always show it. And I said, oh, right, does that get put up for the Champions League final or Madrid against Barcelona? No, it's only Liverpool against Manchester United. There are gangs of Liverpool and Manchester United fans within Addis Ababa, and we saw that earlier in the pre-season when they were touring Thailand. It was like the Beatles arriving in the airport there at Bangkok. You know, the huge support, and I think it comes down to the glamour of both clubs. It comes down to their preeminence and their prominence, and so you can achieve identity by being a Liverpool supporter in Bangkok. And of course, the ones who have a real, genuine, proper challenge against you and your legitimacy and your prominence are Manchester United. So I think that identity of forming an identity with those two clubs is a really powerful thing. And I know it's big in Ireland. I mean, huge numbers come over to Anfield for matches every weekend, and the same to Old Trafford from Dublin and Belfast.
Yeah, well, they were our clubs where the best of our players always aspired to play, and whenever we had great teams, they were backboned by players at Man United and Liverpool. And yeah, I mean, look, it is a fascinating. We could actually do a couple of hours on this. Who's going to win on Monday night, Phil?
I would say Liverpool will win, although Liverpool have made a fairly unconvincing start to the season. But I just think unless Manchester United raise themselves from what we've seen so far this season, I think Liverpool will win. I'm not suggesting they will win on the scale of 5-0 as they did last season. But you look at Manchester United, and one of the interesting things we found was that even when one was down, when they played each other, the one that was down raised themselves and could get the big victory. Last season, I think a big problem for Manchester United fans and what hurt them was that those two games against Liverpool last season were embarrassing, humiliating walkovers. Has this Manchester United team got what it takes to raise themselves and beat Liverpool next week? I would question that.
We will
I don't think
see.
Liverpool are anywhere near their best yet. They've got Nunez will be suspended. Liverpool have got injury problems, but I still think with people like Salah and Diaz, they will have too much for Manchester United's defence based on what we've seen this season.
All right, folks, we got to go. We wish you the very best of success with the book. It's called Red on Red. My thanks to Jim White and Phil McNulty for joining us to set the tone ahead of a weekend of build-up to the game on Monday night. It is 9:31 this morning. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Dennis Ryan says, up late this morning, Owen will be a huge loss, hugely knowledgeable and a perfect deadpan antidote to Ger's enthusiastic squealing.
That's very harsh on you.
It's a bit deliverance. Okay, thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, usually I'm told to, I'm happy that somebody isn't telling me to be more enthusiastic. That definitely helps.
Deadpan antidote. That can be your new Twitter bio.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely not that I'm up early in the morning and don't have the energy to get to enthusiastic squealing. I don't know how Ger does it, to be honest.
Rob Cousins says double espressos. Rob Cousins says will be a loss to the show for sure. Sparse with his language is our Rob. Owen knows his stuff. Full stop.
I don't care if you're sparse, if you're saying those things about me.
That's a ringing endorsement.
It is. Thanks very much.
You're also a cultural icon. Thomas O'Connor says Owen's official endorsement of The Van resulted in me reading the Barrytown trilogy cover to cover.
Wow. Yeah, that was it didn't come to The Van until after Jack Charlton died, which was pretty poor on my part. But I have not read the Barrytown trilogy cover to cover, so maybe I need to do that. If you recommended that, Thomas, and I'll take your endorsement as a sign I need to do that.
It's like a virtuous circle.
Yeah, just a book club if you're interested.
I mean, you are going travelling. You should get some book recommendations from our users.
Yeah, send them in.
Yeah, 0879 180 180 for your recommendations. Now, to Munich, and I'm delighted to say we have Rashida Adeleke with us again on the show. I'm delighted to welcome you back. Rashida, how are you doing? How are you feeling this morning?
Thank you, I'm good. I'm a little bit tired, but no, I'm fine. I'm still kind of energetic still after last night.
How do you sleep after running a new personal best Irish record in a major championships? Do you get any sleep?
No, not really, because you always have so much adrenaline as well, so rushing through, so it's hard to sleep sometimes.
We had Israel on the show yesterday morning, and he said he celebrated by going to McDonald's in Munich. How did you celebrate?
Well, it was really late when I got back, so I just had to get back to the hotel, get something to eat, and go to bed. Literally, like, I didn't even think of McDonald's, honestly.
Yeah, he had the good idea, obviously, the previous night. Like, what is that experience in that headspace like? Is it? I presume it's kind of like hard to come off that, because it felt like such a roller coaster of emotions, even between finishing the race yesterday and then realising a couple of moments later that you'd obviously set the time that you did.
Yeah, like, obviously, in the race, I was very cautious of like what was going on. I knew I was in medal position. When I crossed the line, I was quite disappointed because I knew like I didn't medal. And when the time was coming up on the board, you know, first, second, third, fourth, I didn't see my name. I was like, oh God. And I was already like kind of disappointed. Then I saw my name come up in fifth, a new national record. And I was like, do you know what? I'll take that. Like, after the long season, like, I'm happy to be here and to be able to like make, you know, personal best after like 48 races or whatnot.
The race itself is, as Owen described it there, a bit of a roller coaster, because you've so much time to think. Like, it's 50 seconds basically of like thoughts and where am I now? How's it going? What's that like for you? Do you break it down into little chunks? Is there kind of one part of your brain just going run, and the rest of it going, where is everybody else? How much are you aware of as the race progresses?
Yeah, like, I'm completely aware. I'm completely aware of what's happening in the race, not necessarily what's happening like outside with like noise and like fans and stuff, but like the 400 is so long that like it's just a complete mind game. Like, coming off the first bend into the straight, you're just thinking like get out, and like I was running and I was thinking, oh, I already passed the Polish girl inside of me, on the outside of me. So I was thinking like maybe I'm going too fast. But I was like, no, listen to the plan that Coach Flo gave you. Keep running. And like, you know, at the same time, when you're coming home on the home straight, it's kind of like just keep pushing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to convince myself that I'm not hurting and just keep pushing. It's going to be worth it at the end. Yeah. So it's a lot of mind games while I'm running. I'm very aware of what's going on.
How painful is the home stretch?
It's bad, like pain wise, but like as well, like as I said, like I was in medal position until the like last 10-15 meters, and you know, mentally knowing that like a medal is slipping away from you and you literally can't move your legs any faster is like the worst thing in the world.
How do you know? Like, have you looked across? Is it peripheral vision? Like,
so I was actually looking at the big screen while I was running down the home straight, which probably, you know, was a lesson for me. Don't really do that, because I feel like the excitement of me being in medal position kind of made me tense up a bit, because I was like, don't lose the medal. You're in a medal position. You're in a medaling position. And I feel like that kind of threw me off a bit. So kind of a lesson for next time, like just focus on the race like you're in the race itself. So just focus on that.
Somebody said, and in various places, that this is only the 6th outdoor 400 metres you've run. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was my 6th race ever. I'm still new to the event, kind of. So, like, knowing how to run it is always going to be a challenging experience for me at this stage. But, you know, each race is a new experience for me. So I definitely took something away from that race last night.
And I presume the more you do it, it's as much about running in all the different lane positions as much as it is running the actual 400, that if you get that crappy draw again, you'll know exactly what to do next time. I presume that's part of it.
Yeah, it's all part of it. At the end of the day, like, it's all 400 meters. Lane 1 wouldn't really be convenient for like someone like myself, being so tall. I have such a long stride, I can't really fully extend myself. But I just had to try to get out my head. Like, each lane is equal 400, and you know, you just have to try to give your best on the day.
When did you make the decision to move to the 400?
It wasn't really like it wasn't really like a decision. It just kind of got thrown into it. Like, I did 4x4s, and like then I just randomly did the 400 outdoors at Big 12s in May, and then like I ran a new national record there. So I was like, do you know what? Like, let me do this at Worlds. I decided a couple months later I'm going to do it at Worlds, and it just kind of became a thing. So like now I'm just in it, kind of.
Are you now officially a 400 meter runner? Is that what your future is, do you think?
I definitely will do it in the future. I'm probably going to do more 200s, or maybe a couple more 100s, maybe a couple more 60s.
Right.
I don't know. I love all the events, so it's kind of hard to choose one. But my most potential is probably the 400 meters.
It feels that way, certainly. And the progress that you've made so quickly, would suggest that is the case. There was also a report that maybe you weren't even going to come to the Europeans after the Worlds because you were a bit disappointed that you didn't make the final of the Worlds. Was that in your thinking, or was that actually, no, hang on a second, I've just run like the 9th fastest time here, I'm going to go to the Europeans and I'm going to get into that final and I'm going to keep going. What was your thought process there?
Well, yeah, after Worlds, like even before Worlds, I already decided that I was going to go to Europeans. Like I had I had a holiday booked from June, and Worlds was only in end of July. So I already made that decision not to go to Worlds because to Europeans, because I felt like Europeans were so far away. You know, I have a long season next year. I should just end it there and go on to some winter, fall training and, get ready for next year. And I had about 10 days off, completely off after Worlds. I was in my off season and I just missed running. I was I might actually just go to Europeans because I feel like I could do something there. And my hope was to get a medal. This was probably the most competitive year ever for the 400 meters. There was a ridiculous amount of girls under 51 seconds in the 400 this year. So it was definitely a challenging thing to do, but I just committed to it and I'm here now. So
how many days into that 10-day break did it take for you to realise that you missed running?
Probably on the 8th day. I was just I kind of want to run, because I just love running so much. So it's I kind of missed it. And a lot of people would think, oh, you missed running, just go for a run or just maybe do a training session. But I was no, I want to still compete. So it's a bit different in that case.
Can I just ask, what are you thinking about at that moment? What is the bit that you love the most about it that you're thinking about? Is it just running itself, or is it actually the winning, considering you're obviously very, very successful at this as well? What part about the competing did you miss on day 8 of that break?
I just missed the atmosphere of competing, the trail of competing, and as well I feel like I kind of had unfinished business. I knew I was in good shape at Worlds and I was maybe I shouldn't throw away the good shape, or maybe I should see what I can still do, because I knew Worlds wasn't my best performance. I didn't even run a PB. So I was I knew what type of shape I was in, and I knew that I could run a new national record. And, I kind of want to see if, those thoughts were true.
How has living in America worked out for you? How is it working? And obviously you're heading back there for next year as well. What's on the schedule there, and what are the bits that living there exclusively allows you to do?
No, I absolutely love it there. I think it's just the perfect place for academics, life in general, and athletics. It just has a great balance of everything. A lot of people would say the long season isn't ideal, especially if you're going to do post-season competitions. But, Coach Flo has us up well to that we can still continue performing and continue running PBs after, the long collegiate season. It just has the training geared towards that too. So, it's just the right mix of everything, and it just allows me to, become the best athlete I can be. And yeah, it's a really good setup over there.
How long are you scheduled to be in the University of Texas?
Well, I graduate in 2024, so up until then at least.
Okay, and the European season, is that then on your agenda after that, properly Diamond League and all that kind of stuff, or will you be able to do a little bit of both?
Yeah, it depends. I don't want to overextend myself if it's not necessary. So if I do need to do anything a Diamond League or anything to test how I am after the collegiate season, I could. But it's usually the major championships that's my main focus.
Go on.
Well, I know you got relay this week as well, but are you eventually going to get on that holiday?
No, we have the relay, yes, but no, I won't be able to go on any holidays because I literally start school the day I get back to the US from Munich. So yeah, I'm straight back into it. I won't train until October, but school is on in person, so I can't really go anywhere.
Sometimes, college, or it's okay to take it easy for the first few weeks. You can still have a good time, right?
Yeah, of course. I can find some. Dawson is a really lovely place, so there's a lot of things to do. Hopefully, I can meet up with friends and find some fun stuff to do over there, and just make the most of the little break I have.
I don't know if you've seen the sports pages, but your picture is on the front of the Examiner and a couple of other of the sports sections. Are you aware of the impact that yourself and Israel have had this week, and just the inspiration that you're providing to the entire country?
No, yeah, like I just absolutely love all the support. Like that's probably one of the reasons why I love competing so much, because like I can put a smile on other people's faces and they can put a smile on my face. So I just love the overall like experience. Like I just love how supportive the fans are and how like much they give to us, and so we can give to them. So yeah, it's just amazing.
In terms of the major championships that you're talking about, when you go back now, having run a national record at the 400, do you start thinking about that in Olympic terms, like that will be the target, whatever else about running everything else, and really enjoying that and honing your sprinting from the 60 indoor to whatever in the collegiate circuit? Do you think now from an Ireland perspective and from a major championships perspective that the 400 will be the focus?
Yeah, like showing how much I progressed in the last year from just starting it and not even doing any base training for the 400. I just feel like there's a lot of promise in this event. So yeah, I definitely would see myself doing it at more World and Olympics, and this makes me excited to see even what I could do next year if I start training for the 400 this fall coming up, and get ready for it, indoor outdoor season. Yeah, it makes me really excited.
Yeah, well, we're all really excited for you too, Rashida. Great to have you with us. Thanks a million. Enjoy the rest of the week in Munich. Cheers.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That's Rashida Adeleke there, new national record holder at 400 metres after a stunning effort at the European Championships in Munich. Right, we're live each morning with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Before we bring you some Seamus Coleman goodness and the news about what's on tomorrow's show, Conal Foyne says, yeah, big loss, Owen Sheehan. Started listening when OTB AM started through COVID, etc. We'll miss the Killarney accent as well. All the best.
People in Killarney would say I lost my Killarney accent.
Would they?
Yeah, which is true, to be fair.
Did you?
But I've only obviously lost it to a degree.
Patrick McLaughlin, Owen will be missed. All the best in future. Pat O'Rourke, best of luck. Enjoy your travels. Hope to see you back on your return. Connor Delaney says, crushing news about Owen's departure. Best of luck for the future. He's not gone yet, right? Like, you do have to tell us what your highlights were. And you do need to...
Or lowlights, actually.
Lowlights,
but I would be much more comfortable hearing lowlights.
Connor Rowe, am I making this up? Or wasn't there a day where Owen turned up 40 minutes late and hung over to fuck? That could be my favourite Owen moment.
No, this is more like a this is the sort of comments I'm after. This is good stuff.
Could you find it for us? Could you?
I've been 40 minutes late, and I've definitely been hungover at various times. I thankfully don't think I've combined the two. I think that if I've been hungover as whatever, I think I've always made sure to be on time, because that's a bit of a red flag. I genuinely think the one time
we could never tell that you were hungover.
Yeah.
The power rankings this week. What? the vacant stare into space. We could never tell. I'd love to play poker with you. What were you going to say?
No, I was just saying that I think the one time I was 40 minutes late, I actually genuinely wasn't hungover. Although there was that one time where I just didn't, show up at all. Where obviously I was just asleep and still, basically still out.
OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Sometimes we're on the sesh. It's 9:46. We're a little bit late. OTB AM back tomorrow from 7:30 with the return of Adrian Who's Your Daddy Barry. Adrian's going to be flanked by Owen, of course. We'll also have the crappy quiz with speaker French football journalist Julien Laurent, Ironman Michael Burton, the former Tampa Bay Buccaneers kicker Pat Murray, plus much more. Now, here's some Seamus Coleman goodness speaking with Richie. See you tomorrow.
Spar have launched their Better Choices campaign, which is now available in stores nationwide. This year, Spar will be providing the tools to make everyday better choices more exciting for parents and children alike as they prepare for the return to school. In addition to healthy recipes, Spar have produced their social content series Seamus Says, which sees the Republic of Ireland captain provide the best tips and fun ideas for keeping children active when it comes to exercising after school and at the weekends. For more information, visit spar.ie. And as we mentioned, helping Spar launch Better Choices today is the star of Seamus Says, the Republic of Ireland captain, Seamus Coleman. Seamus, you're very welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. How are you?
Good, thank you. First questions first, and I want to hopefully get a bit of an exclusive here. Have you been approached to be, or are you part of any of the prospective Donegal backroom teams that are being possibly formulated at the moment?
No, not yet. I think the game's changed that much in the last 10 years. It would be no use to anybody. So, no, definitely not. But I hope to get someone in that can help them along the way.
I don't know, you'd be an ideal S&C guy, I'd say, going into a backroom staff, whether it's Donegal or someone else at this stage. You've managed to catch a bit here and there over the past while. I know you were pictured at the qualifier with Armagh in the last while. Like, how has football changed in that respect since you probably played it as a kid to where it is now? I'd imagine it's almost a completely unrecognisable game.
Yeah, it is. It's a completely different game, even at club level, even around all the counties. I'm sure at club level it's the same. Just got very tactical and still an unbelievable spectacle. Still love watching it, but I think coaching has changed and the way the game's played's changed so much, but it doesn't make it any less exciting. I still love, going to the games. I loved going to the Donegal Armagh game, bar the result. But I do, obviously, when I was playing, I suppose if you were better than the man you were marking, then, you'd score a few points or he'd score a few points, whatever the case may be. Whereas now it's more, getting people behind the ball and tactically, kick-outs from the goalkeepers and breaking at the right times. And, a lot of the time there's both sets of players in one half. So it's changed a lot in that regard, but it's still an unbelievable spectacle.
Be curious to see where you were deployed as a player when you did play.
I played centre half back. That was my position. I loved it. You can get a bit of both. You can get attacking a bit, and obviously your first job was to defend. But I loved it. It was a massive part of my life growing up, and still to this day I'll watch it. Massive part of my life, and I love the sport.
In that respect, would you be unusual in an Everton dressing room whereby you would have played a competitive sport, a different competitive sport up to a certain age, and then obviously concentrated on soccer? Whereas I think especially with younger players, like you would have seen it yourself with the young players coming through at Everton, like they would have been soccer only possibly throughout their entire young lives and into their young part of their careers. So to have that other background behind you as well has got to be increasingly rare in the English game.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, and I think, to be honest for you, it can do you no harm playing loads of different sports. I know, nowadays, probably back home especially, like you'll have one of the sports kind of trying to pull kids in one direction or saying they need to concentrate on this or that, but it does get to a stage where you need to. But I think when kids are young, from 8 to 16 or whatever the case may be, I think playing both can benefit you. I know, listen, there's training loads and things now that you need to worry about, and kids' injuries and things, of course, but I think you can get a lot of good from both sports. It can kind of help you when you do decide to make that decision on one. But over here, I do know when I came first, Phil Neville played a lot of cricket growing up, and I think he could have had a good career at that, but he had to choose one or the other, and he picked soccer. But I do think you can get benefit from playing a few different sports before you have to nail down one.
Yeah, physically I'd say probably it worked in your favour, and similarly getting to play in the League of Ireland at such a young age as well probably worked physically in your favour as well. In terms of physically at the moment, whereabouts are you? I know you missed the Chelsea game, but you're back involved there last weekend, at least on the bench as well. How about your own fitness? Are you coming along okay?
Yeah, coming along okay. Listen, getting away towards the end of last season, I was kind of hanging on there. Had a problem, and it was the situation that we were in at the club. You kind of had no time to get it right, I suppose. And I had a week off before I went away with Ireland, then hoping it would settle, but unfortunately it didn't settle. So I had to take some time out, and unfortunately because of that I missed pre-season games. But at the minute now the pain's gone, and I'm looking forward, and I'm starting to get my fitness up bit by bit. Obviously I'll be a little bit behind the rest of the lads in terms of minutes and things like that, but fully fit and looking forward to another season. It's
been a difficult start so far to the season for Everton, but I guess the positive aspect from it, from your point of view, is you haven't been out of sight in either of those games that you played so far in the Premier League. There have been 1-goal margins in both of them. That's something to build on, and imagine Frank has probably drove home that message in the past couple of weeks as well, that you're not far away. Where do you feel Everton are as a squad this season as compared to last? Because last year was, I guess, it was broken up into 3 bits, and trying to get out of trouble was of course the last part of all that. You managed it. Whereabouts are Everton this season? What's the aim?
Yeah, no, listen, of course we would have liked to pick up some points in the games, but I think, like you touched on, we were competitive, we were in the games, there wasn't much in it. I think, we've added a lot of experience to the group, which is good, and Connor Cody and James Tarkowski, men that have been around a long time at Premier League level, even lower down, and played a lot of games. And I think it's good to add that to a dressing room because they've got a lot of experience. And I think we probably lacked that at times last year. We probably missed a bit of experience. So to have them added to the group is massive. And I think you talked about there wasn't much in the game, a goal here or there, but I think now across the Premier League it's that competitive that there's very fine margins in all the games. So it's quite a boring answer, but I think as a group we have to look to Saturday and try and get 3 points on Saturday and move on from there, rather than setting long-term targets or season targets, because it's such a competitive league, and I'm confident that we're going to have a much better season, and we just got to prove that on the pitch.
How did Frank get on in pre-season? Because obviously, like you mentioned, I was watching an interview you did with Tim Howard on the Everton site there in the summer, and you mentioned the importance of, obviously, coming in mid-season is its own thing, but it's getting your feet under the table, and managing to get a pre-season with the full squad is huge for a new manager. Has he settled in okay? Is he bringing things on as you kind of anticipated?
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, you can see it with the signings that he's making, as well, of what he wants from a grip, what he wants from, a group of professionals. And, I think everyone would know the manager from his playing days and the way he handled himself and how much he took everything out of his career by the work rate he showed him on the training pitches and matches. And that's starting to rub off in the grip in terms of what he expects and the standards that he sets. And, of course, like you touched on, coming in mid-season is very, very tough, especially, I think you can underestimate how in a bad place that we would have been. The results weren't going well. We weren't in a good, healthy position in the league. So very difficult for a manager to come in to that kind of grip. But, he won the fans over massively. They had a great relationship that kind of pushed us over the line in the end. So, I'm sure he's happy that he's had a pre-season of work. Transfer window's still open. I'm sure he's still working away and things like that. But we're really confident of having a good season.
You pointed towards it there. Was the morale within the team so low, or was it just a case of belief was drained a little bit, or you didn't know where the next result was coming from at that point last season when things did get really sticky for you?
Yeah, I think it's just natural. Unfortunately, when things aren't going well, you've just got to find a way out of it. And sometimes it's not as easy as that you think, and there definitely was games where you probably end up feeling a bit sorry for yourself. Things didn't go your way. There was like handball decisions and penalty decisions that, listen, everyone will have their own gripe about from their own team as well. But just felt like things weren't really going our way. But thankfully at the right times when the manager needed to tell us a few home truths, he did, and always got a reaction. And in the end, between the players, the manager, and all the fans, we got over the line in the end. And I keep saying, it's not something that we see as success. What happened last season, it was just relief and understanding that that's not somewhere where we want to be again. Just relief that we got over the line, but that's not the standards for Everton Football Club, without a shadow of a doubt.
Of course. In terms of home truths, a lot of headlines were made by Frank's comments in the wake of that quarter-final loss in the FA Cup to Crystal Palace, that the team didn't have for want of a better term, the balls to succeed. Now, it's a very stark phrase to be saying about your own players, and I know you were captain that day, played a full 70-odd minutes as well. What was your initial reaction to that comment from Frank, and what was the reaction within the dressing room towards it?
Well, to be honest with you, I've been a player that has always looked in the mirror at all times. So, I don't think as players, it's something that we could question, because we weren't good enough. We got beat, I don't know, was it 3-4 or whatever it was in that game. But there was other games as well, Tottenham away, where you can lose a game, but you've got to show some fight. And I think the manager called it out correctly. And there was other stuff in house as well. When he needed to say stuff, he was well within his rights and always got a reaction. So we're playing for a big football club. We've got fans paying money. We understand that we're under scrutiny at all times. So it's part and parcel of the job to own it and understand it and look yourself in the mirror. And that's all you ever ask from players, that they can be honest with themselves as well.
I might be wrong in this, but you seem kind of mentally pretty self-sufficient. You kind of have enough faith in your own ability and your own work rate that you can get through issues, get through slumps in seasons, get through injuries, etc. Are there people in-house in the club that the players are, that they, you know, if the opportunity arises or if they want to, they can turn to in those aspects? Is there like sports psychologists knocking around the place that help in terms of the team's mentality, or how do things work out there? Is it just a man-for-man basis?
No, listen, I think I've been here long enough and have had my own ups and downs along the way in many, many ways. Good bits of form, bad bits of form, injuries, things like that. I think it's part and parcel of the journey of being a professional footballer. And, last year was the first time, obviously, that I had to feel the pressure that we were under as a group. And myself personally, I was captain of the club. I've been here a long time. So last year was the first time I had to feel that. But I think any of the lads know here that, we're here to support each other. We're here to help each other at all times. And I think that's so important, because if everyone's, in a good place mentally, then they can perform better on the pitch. But again, easier said than done. And you need to make sure that lads are comfortable to come to you as well. And I'll always, I think most of the lads in there know that they can come to me. And it's an important part of today's game.
Yeah, one of those people who I'm sure would have come to you in the last while, because just given the age profile involved, is Anthony Gordon. There's been a lot of talk about him in the papers this week, bids from Chelsea, etc., being knocked back. I know you're not going to speak to potential deals and all that kind of stuff. Just give us a sense of the player and perhaps indeed the person that Anthony Gordon is, because the general consensus seems to be that this guy's ceiling is pretty high.
No, listen, speaking on Anthony, he's come into the team. He went out to Preston on loan. He's come into the team last year under difficult circumstances as well. And I think the fans really held on to that he was a local boy. And I think you could see by, his probably not what is expected of him. It's more the attacking side that people want to see. But we could see someone that was ready for the fight, ready to put it all on the line to get us through that difficult period last year. He was going into tackles, he was running back, and the fans really took to that, really appreciated that. And the other side, he's got ability, goes past people, he's fast. So very, very good player. And we'll see what happens with Anthony, but at the moment he's an Everton player, and of course we all want him to be an Everton player.
Just in terms of age profile as well, it's somebody, it seems, that given the amount of game time that he has been afforded by Everton and by Frank in particular, that it would benefit him to stay, at least, I don't want to say in the short term, but certainly.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.